moved. Finally, he placed his hand on Huami's belly. It's almost 6 months. Time passed so quickly, as if the night of passion between him and Huami happened just yesterday.
Huami nodded.
She thought Gong Yi was going to be nagging again. As a result, Gong Yi just raised his hand, touched Huami's head, turned around and walked into the wind and snow. At this time on the Hunan-di Expressway, Vasily and his remaining few killer subordinates were looking for his brother. Ever since escaping from Lu Xingyuan's hands, Vasily and other killers have been waiting for an opportunity to hijack a batch of supplies and take revenge. However, I don't know if it was because they were unlucky or if Huami was prepared. They stayed on Hunan-si Expressway for several days in a row, but did not see a single material transport truck. Perhaps it was because City C had been buried in snow, so the supply trucks would no longer go to City C. So Vasily decided to take another route and rob the supply truck. Isn't the Hunan-di Expressway now open to traffic? They inquired for information along the way, but they did not find out any information about the supply truck. Instead, they found out about their brother, who had a scorpion tattoo on his neck. It is said that someone has seen him. One of the assassins whispered, "Chief, since Babu has already come out of the supply warehouse, why doesn't he come to find us?" This is also what Vasily is puzzled about. They are an organization, and although there are only a few people left now, their cohesion has always been strong. Vasily's eyes suddenly became sharp, revealing a sinister, murderous aura. Our organization will never allow the existence of traitors. They discussed it on the spot and continued to head toward City D. Another killer was very puzzled. Why are there so few people setting up stalls on the Hunan-di Expressway? Gong Yi went all the way from City C to City D. He could occasionally find 1 or 2 lone zombies, but he did not find any traces of large numbers of zombies. The traces along the way will be buried by the snow, making it difficult to track the zombies. At this time, Zhong Zimo had already arrived in City D with some administrators from City C. The environment inside City D was completely different from what he had imagined. There aren't many survivors here. The original garrison commander and management commander of City D were all dead. One after another, in such natural disasters and man-made disasters, most of the garrisons and administrators were killed. Zhong Zimo looked at the administrator who led them to City D and asked, "Didn't you say that we should come to City D for refuge? There is no one here. What is going on in City D? If you have never been to City D, you will not know how desolate it is." It is clear that the management of City D has contacted City C in a formal diplomatic manner and wanted to do business with City C. The administrator of City D, whose name was Mi Guiyuan, was confused when he heard this. "I don't know where all the people in City D have gone. Maybe they all went to Shangqing?" By the way, when he left, there were still people walking around on the streets of City D. Maybe because the weather is too cold and there are too few supplies in City D, the survivors don't like to stay in City D. As he spoke, he led Zhong Zimo and others on the road to the management building. City D was not buried in snow, but the buildings here were also dilapidated. Although there are several people with special powers in City D, they are only very strong and have no other abilities. So they are good at doing hard labor. When asked to clear the snow in City D, they work very quickly. But if they were asked to repair the buildings in City D, they had no cement. Zhong Zimo felt strange and followed Mi Guiyuan to the front of the management building. Another group of administrators came out. Someone greeted Mi Guiyuan and smiled jokingly. "So it turned out that you really did bring back the gold mine, haha." When he came, Zhong Zimo had already made arrangements with Mi Guiyuan that he had a reserve fund account in City C. While City D helps rebuild City C, Zhong Zimo can use City C's reserve funds to help City D operate. Zhong Zimo and Mi Guiyuan made this point very clear. The administrators of City C and the remaining administrators of City D quickly entered the management building to discuss plans to rebuild City C and City D. To rebuild, the most important thing is supplies. No matter how many twists and turns you go, you still can't get around Huami. Everyone was discussing enthusiastically. Zhong Zimo from City C had money, and City D had people with supernatural powers, so the two sides hit it off immediately. It was decided to use the reserve funds of City C to purchase large quantities of supplies from Huami. At this time, In the meeting room, a junior administrator from City C whispered to Zhong Zimo, "Why do I feel like there are so many new faces in the management of City D?" He is responsible for the business connection with D-City, and he is also a native of D-City and is familiar with the management level of D-City. But this time when he came to City D, the young administrator didn't see any acquaintances. Seeing Zhong Zimo looking back, the young administrator pointed to a man with a strong gangster vibe in the corner of the meeting room and whispered, "Why would such a person appear in the management level?" Zhong Zimo looked over and, sure enough, found a ferocious-looking man with dyed yellow hair in the corner. He felt strange and asked Mi Guiyuan in a low voice, "Did your original management team undergo such a major change?" In extreme environments, death is inevitable, and Zhong Zimo understands this. Not to mention the management level of City D. Even in City C, their original secretary team of Ma Yongchun has lost a lot of people. If there is loss, there must be replenishment. But the recruitment of management personnel in City D is too unselective. Can a man who looks like a gangster also get into management? Mi Guiyuan tilted his head and followed Zhong Zimo's gaze. He smiled and said, "We can't help it. Too many people have run away from here. The things that were originally assigned would disappear the next day." So gradually, all kinds of people infiltrated the management level of City D. Now, not to mention that Zhong Zimo and the others didn't know any of the management of City D. Even Mi Guiyuan couldn't recognize everyone in the conference room. A with green hair stood up and said, Okay, we have arranged some entertainment activities on the second floor below ground in the management building. Let's eat, drink, and have fun. We will go to Shangqing to buy supplies later." Someone echoed and happily led the way to the basement floor. Zhong Zimo and Mi Guiyuan also followed him to the basement level too. Along the way, Mi Guiyuan was still muttering, "It's already this late. Why are you still doing any entertainment?" But as soon as they entered the second underground floor, Mi Guiyuan and Zhong Zimo were shocked. Is this the underground second floor of the management building? Why is it decorated like a dance hall? As the music started, a group of flashy women rushed over, with two of them holding up an administrator. He frowned at the extravagant style, then looked at Mi Guiyuan. Mi Guiyuan obviously didn't expect that he had only been away from City D for a few days. How could the D City management building become like this? Looking at the other administrators, it was obvious that some of them had entered the negative second floor for entertainment more than once. Everyone is very familiar with the place. A man came over with two beauties in his arms to toast Zhong Zimo. Because Zhong Zimo had money, he received great courtesy here. The two most beautiful women flanked Zhong Zimo on his left and right. He always felt that something was wrong, but after a while, Zhong Zimo felt dizzy and gradually lost his will under the stimulation of alcohol. The next day, Zhong Zimo woke up in the bed of two women. Mi Guiyuan raised his hand and pushed Zhong Zimo. Wake up, something happened." Looking at Zhong Zimo's still not quite clear face, Mi Guiyuan said seriously, "Several administrators of your city, have died." These words made Zhong Zimo pause. He suddenly woke up and hurriedly put on his clothes. "How did he die?" "Yesterday we were all together, ambitiously planning to rebuild City C and City D, but today several administrators of City C died?" Mi Guiyuan shook his head, he didn't know either. Zhong Zimo had a sullen face as he was led by Mi Guiyuan all the way to the first floor of the administration building. The bloodstains on the ground had been buried, and the bodies of the C-City administrators were placed side by side in the lobby of the management building. Among them was the young administrator, who reminded Zhong Zimo yesterday. Mi Guiyuan went forward and checked the body on the ground. He looked at Zhong Zimo with a heavy face and moved his lips. There was a yellow-haired administrator nearby who said nonchalantly, "How could he die before he could even enjoy his good life? Forget it, just bury him." As they spoke, several other men who looked very gangster-like came over, lifted up the body of the C-City administrator on the ground, and prepared to take it outside to be thrown away. Zhong Zimo raised his hand. Wait, his people were just carried away like that? Without any explanation. A D-City administrator nearby raised his hand and patted Zhong Zimo on the shoulder. "Secretary Zhong, there are dead bodies everywhere now, right? Take it easy. We still have to carry out our plan from yesterday, as usual. If you don't have enough people, we'll send a few to you. Zhong Zimo's face looked ugly as he looked at the several strange men who were walking over. Zhong Zimo had no idea what the abilities of these men were. The administrators of City D seemed to be just a few people randomly assigned, and they looked like they were there to fill in for the people who died around Zhong Zimo. But in essence, it feels a bit like monitoring Zhong Zimo. The eyes hidden behind the lenses flashed, and Zhong Zimo looked towards Mi Guiyuan. A man was talking to Mi Guiyuan. Mi Guiyuan looked very unhappy, but he still nodded. The bodies of those City C administrators who had no explanation for their cause of death were quickly carried out. The group was still chatting and laughing as usual, except for Zhong Zimo. Just like that, he was taken to the second floor of the basement. Mi Guiyuan came over and whispered to Zhong Zimo. What they mean is that they still want to buy supplies from Huami in the name of rebuilding City C. I heard that you have a girlfriend named Shirt Saixia, and she is currently helping Huami. You can make use of Shirt Saixia's relationship. In the colorful lights, Zhong Zimo looked at Mi Guiyuan with a gloomy face. What's going on? Mi Guiyuan, I came to your D-City with Ma Yongchuan's secretarial team because I trust you. Do you know that every member of this secretarial team is a talent, a child of destiny? As a result, we were only here for one day, literally one day, and more than half of my team members died. How can we rebuild two cities like this? Mi Guiyuan, who was standing in front of Zhong Zimo, lowered his head and pinched his eyebrows. He felt that it was a bit difficult for him to explain. But I'm sorry to say, I gradually realized that something was wrong. My boss told me that we just needed to use the excuse of rebuilding City C to obtain a large amount of supplies. As for whether to rebuild or not, it doesn't really matter. There were many things that Mi Guiyuan couldn't understand. He used to be just a very small clerk in the management level of D-City. There has been a major reshuffle of management in City D, and this is something that the US has no control over. If people hadn't died today, and those C-City administrators who came to D-City had died in front of Mi Guiyuan, he still wouldn't know where the problem lay. The problem is that the entire management level of City D seems to be controlled by an invisible hand. No one knows what they're doing, they just need to find a way to get supplies to City D. Zhong Zimo's face looked grim. You guys in City D have made a good plan. Are you planning to use City C's reserve funds to stock up on goods? Mi Guiyuan didn't say anything. He didn't think it was the case at first, but now he thinks it is the case. Zhong Zimo immediately turned around and left. This money is to be used to rebuild City C. Who knows if you will abandon me after you have used up all my money? Mi Guiyuan, our cooperation is terminated. In the long corridor on the second floor below ground, Mi Guiyuan stood behind Zhong Zimo and whispered, I'm afraid this matter is beyond our control now. Mi Guiyuan is also innocent. He only realized today that he was being used. But he was more receptive than Zhong Zimo. Seeing Zhong Zimo stop, Mi Guiyuan breathed a sigh of relief and whispered, those C-City administrators of yours died by having their necks broken. Zhong Zimo turned around suddenly and stared at Mi Guiyuan in the dim light. He nodded, took 2 steps towards Zhong Zimo, and said, no matter what, you have to save your life first before you can find a way to leave. It was obvious that this was a huge trap, and Zhong Zimo stepped into the trap in City D. There's no way out. He stared at Mi Guiyuan hatefully. Mi Guiyuan spread his hands and sighed helplessly. Immediately afterwards, Mi Guiyuan's boss came over and told Zhong Zimo directly to contact Shirt Saixia to purchase a large quantity of supplies. He asked Zhong Zimo to turn on the speaker on his phone. A group of men gathered around Zhong Zimo and listened to what he and Shirt Saixia were saying. Zhong Zimo was angry, but he knew he had no choice but to do as he was told. If he doesn't do as he is told, he will probably be the one who suffers. The call was connected, and Shirt Saixia's voice came out from the phone. Hello? Senior brother? Didn't you go to D-City? Shirt Saixia was not surprised to receive a call from Zhong Zimo again. Zhong Zimo is not a person who is content with being ordinary. He wants to rebuild City C and enjoy the feeling of being the top leader of the city, so he will definitely make many plans. So even though Zhong Zimo went to City D, neither Shirt Saixia nor Huami thought that Zhong Zimo would disappear from the scene. Zhong Zimo frowned, surrounded by a group of men. Following the instructions of his boss Mi Guiyuan, he said to Shi Saixia, "Yes, I have arrived in City D and have discussed a cooperation project with them. I want to purchase a large quantity of supplies from Huami and send them to City D." He reported some types of supplies, including side dishes, rice, grain, oil, winter clothes, etc. He also followed the instructions of his boss from the United States. City D is developing quite well now. It is a city with great prospects. With huge resources to promote the development of the city, it will not be worse than Xiangqing in the future. Zhong Zimo's words sounded very formal, and there was nothing wrong with them. Because in the eyes of many people, there are many survivors in City D, and large quantities of supplies are also needed. Therefore, it was not wrong for Zhong Zimo to purchase a large amount of supplies from Huami to rescue the survivors in City D. But, Shi Saixia said on the other end of the phone, Ami just sent a notice that her supplies will not be transported to City D in large quantities. Because there is no teleportation point in City D. Such large truckloads of supplies, traveling on the road, can easily be robbed. The threat posed by Vasily has always existed, and Huami doesn't want to let Vasily get away with it. If the survivors in City D want supplies, they can find a way to go to Xiangqing to buy them. Soon as Shi Saixia said this, Zhong Zimo and all the men around him frowned. They never thought that things would get stuck with Huami when they got here. Mi Guiyuan's boss had a very unhappy expression on his face. He looked at Zhong Zimo as if he was looking at a dead person. Just as Mi Guiyuan's boss was about to speak, Zhong Zimo spoke first. "It seems that this matter is not as easy as you think. Why don't we talk about cooperation?" He realized he had fallen into a trap. However, Zhong Zimo has money now, and he also knows Shi Saixia, so he is not completely without a chance to get supplies from Huami. The men around looked at Zhong Zimo unfriendlily. Zhong Zimo, however, was tidying up his clothes in a leisurely manner. "Actually, I should have guessed it long ago. You must be a gang. For some unavoidable reasons, you have infiltrated the management of City D. I don't really care about your true identities, because I am a person who wants to do great things. As long as things are beneficial to me, I don't mind establishing a mutually beneficial cooperative relationship with you." He had originally wanted to cooperate with the management of City D, but now he had simply replaced his cooperation with the management with a team that had no moral principles. Zhong Zimo is good at surviving in a desperate situation. He can always fight for a chance of survival under any unfavorable conditions. Mi Guiyuan's boss, Zhang Jifeng, looked at Zhong Zimo with suspicion. He had also worked in the management level before, and he understood the management level. Not all managers were like him, willing to degenerate and associate with some shady hooligans. After a long time, Zhang Jifeng stepped forward and patted Zhong Zimo on the shoulder. "That's right. If you had said earlier that you had such awareness, those city administrators in your hands would not have died. And think about it, in this environment, with almost everyone dead, we should be more accountable to some capable people. The previous lukewarm approach of the management is outdated." Zhong Zimo deeply agreed with what Zhang Jifeng said. He sneered. It seemed that there was no other way except to associate with this group of people. After reaching a consensus, Zhong Zimo began to go to Xiangqing to purchase supplies. According to his plan, since Huami would not send supplies to City D, they could go to Xiangqing to get them. In short, Zhong Zimo has money, but what he lacks now is people. According to what Zhong Zimo knew, there were people with special abilities in City D. Moreover, these people with immense powers are loyal to the management of City D. The term superpower is really new. Zhong Zimo could never have imagined that people who could only appear in movies and TV dramas could actually appear in real life. He is quite interested in these people with special abilities. So Zhong Zimo found Shi Saixia again. He explained the righteousness to Shi Saixia over the phone. "Huami has so many supplies now. She should give some to City D. Saixia, you should listen to me on this matter. I won't harm you. You are my girlfriend after all. There are many survivors in City D. They are in urgent need of supplies. It's not that I won't pay. I'll just pay according to the market price. Is that not okay? We can send people to transport the supplies ourselves." Obviously, Shi Saixia was persuaded by Zhong Zimo. She felt that this deal was a good deal, and Zhong Zimo was not asking for the supplies for nothing. He would pay for it. However, Shirt Saixia still emphasized that we have broken up. I am not your girlfriend. We only have business matters between us. Please stop talking about private matters. Zhong Zimo would certainly not agree. At this time, he had fallen into the situation, so he would certainly not agree to sever his relationship with Shirt Saixia. That was just your unilateral breakup. I have always said that I do not agree to break up. After saying that, Zhong Zimo hung up the phone. He knew Shirt Saixia. He was a serious person. Because of her unlovable personality and average looks, she has no other suitors. Even if Shirt Saixia said she wanted to break up, after a long time, she had no one else around her and could only stay with Zhong Zimo. And if Zhong Zimo wants to buy supplies from Huami, Shirt Saixia is his best channel. After being rejected from the breakup, Shirt Saixia hurried to the C-City material warehouse and told Huami that Zhong Zimo wanted to purchase a large quantity of materials and would be responsible for the shipping himself. However, it was directly rejected by Huami. The reason is simple. Huami doesn't want to sell large quantities of supplies to Zhong Zimo. Huami touched her big belly and said to Shirt Saixia, "Commander Gong has arrived in City D. He said there are not that many survivors in City D. If we sell these supplies to Zhong Zimo, he may not necessarily use them on the survivors." Shirt Saixia was standing in the heavy snow with a look of astonishment on his face. Really? What about the survivors in City D? Where did the survivors go in such a big city? Huami did not reply. She looked towards the direction of City D. In fact, I'm planning to go to City D. According to Huijing's statistics, the Hunan D Expressway had not been unblocked for long, and there were not that many survivors from City D. Most of the few survivors were strong and came from other cities, taking a detour to City D, and then taking the Hunan D Expressway from City D. Finally arrived in Xiangqing. Huami thought of the group of zombies who stumbled and trudged over here, and she frowned. If necessary, I want to up the Hunan D Expressway. This shocked Shirt Saixia. She asked what happened. This road was finally cleared. Although it was not Huami's tow clearance team that cleared the Hunan D Expressway, it was also the result of the efforts of those psychics in D City. So, by blowing up this highway, wouldn't it make it more difficult for the survivors in City D to reach Xiangqing? Huami raised her hand and patted Shirt Saixia on the shoulder. Believe me, I don't want to do this either, but if the survivors of City D all turned into zombies and hid in some unknown place, then we up the Hunan D Expressway. It's better than these zombies coming over one after another. Shirt Saixia didn't understand what Huami said. Shirt Saixia understood every word she said, but when she put the words together, Shirt Saixia didn't understand. Huami pointed to Zhou Cheng, who was squatting on the ground drawing circles not far away, and said to Shirt Saixia, "Why don't you ask Zhou Cheng? I still have to pack my things for City D. Zhou Cheng should be able to explain it better than I can." Following the direction of Huami's finger, Shirt Saixia looked towards Zhou Cheng. City D with Huami. The reason is simple. This so-called zombie sounds very scary. Shirt Saixia is worried that Huami will be in danger with such a big belly. In fact, Huami decided to go to City D. Both Shirt Saixia and Qin Jin persuaded her. But Huami had no choice but to go. Neither Gong, Yi nor anyone else Huami knew now had any experience in dealing with zombies. In particular, the entire City D is likely to have become a zombie city. It's just because of the heavy snow that blocked the city, so these zombies were trapped somewhere and had no way to get out. When the ice and snow melt, these immortal zombies will come out. Shirt Saixia decided to go to City D with Huami, and Zhou Cheng also decided to go along. It doesn't matter whether it's love or not. What's important is that Zhou Cheng wants to see how powerful the zombies are. He decided to leave, so he made adequate preparations. Because the material warehouse in City C is full of cement, not many garrisons are needed here. All the garrisons in City C will go to Xiangqing and be incorporated into the Xiangqing garrison. It is uniformly deployed and managed by Gong Yi. If you discover that a beast is attacking survivors, immediately be on high alert. Huami, Shirt Saixia, and Zhou Cheng drove a high-end nanny car onto the Hunan D Expressway. On the Hunan D Expressway, they saw the same scene. There was not a single survivor setting up a stall on the roadside. Maybe there were a few survivors before, but last time a beast appeared and attacked the survivors, gnawing their internal organs into pieces. The survivors on Hunan-di Expressway disappeared inexplicably. Huami asked Zhou Qing to drive for a while and then stopped. She held her waist and carefully surveyed the scene on the roadside. Shirt Saixia got out of the nanny car in the heavy snow and asked, "Ami, have you found any clues?" Standing on the side of the highway, Huami shook her head and pointed at the snow on the ground. "There are people clearing obstacles on this Xiangdi highway every day." Shirt Saixia nodded. "It is said that they are several people with special abilities." She got this news from Zhong Zimo. Zhong Zimo would often intentionally or unintentionally ask her for news about Huami and Qingjin. When Shirt Saixia realized this, she decided to take advantage of the situation and try to find out some information from Zhong Zimo. A superpower. Huami nodded in understanding. If he was a person with special abilities, clearing the obstacles would just be a piece of cake. "I just don't know where these people with special abilities come from." She turned around and got into the car with Shirt Saixia. Zhou Qing continued driving. Not long after, he saw a truck through the front windshield, parked on the side of the highway. Obviously, it should have come from the direction of Xiangqing. He motioned to Huami and Shirt Saixia to look. A little ahead of the truck was a snowy mountain. Huami looked at the snow-capped mountains slowly moving away in front of her. Real snow mountain. Shirt Saixia, who was standing by, had never seen such a magical sight before. She asked Zhou Qing, "What is this?" Zhou Qing didn't know either. It was the first time he saw a snow mountain that could move and grow larger. Huami's explanation was not surprising. If a group of very strong people push the snow together, the snow will accumulate more and finally form a snow mountain. It seems that this is how the supernatural people in City D clear obstacles. After Huami said this, Zhou Qing and Shirt Saixia discovered that there were several people under the snow mountain. Zhou Qing counted them. 12. This D city is too amazing. There are 12 people with special abilities. I am so envious. I'm afraid that in Xiangqing and City B, many people still don't have the concept of people with superpowers. But there are actually 12 people with superpowers in City D. Huami sneered. There was an analysis post that said that among 100,000 zombies, there would be one person with special abilities. Just think about it yourself. With 12 people with special abilities, how many zombies would there be in City D? The key is that we still can't find where these zombies are. Zhou Qing counted on his fingers, but before he could figure it out, Shirt Saixia said seriously, according to the previous census, the population of City D is about 883 million. But this data is from 3 years ago. The population has been increasing year by year. Even if the earthquake caused some loss of life, it is not that many. Especially since the earthquake started in a small area and then gradually spread to the entire city. So from the time of the first earthquake, many people took precautions and ran outside as soon as the shaking started. In this case, out of the 3.383 million people in City D, at least 3 million people will be left. Shirt Saixia's face turned pale as he spoke. If there are hundreds of thousands of zombies, how can the three of us deal with them? Huami, sitting in the airline seat, glanced at Shirt Saixia. Hundreds of thousands of zombies? You think things are too simple. I hope only a few 100,000 people are killed. Then, Huami said to Zhou Qing, "Commander Zhou, why don't you go down and make friends with those people with special abilities and get some inside information from them?" Zhou Qing thought it made sense, so he parked the nanny car on the side of the road and took the initiative to go forward and talk to those psychics who were pushing the snow mountain. Only after Zhou Qing got off the car did Shirt Saixia say thoughtfully, "I think these people with special abilities are closely related to the management of City D." Huami looked towards Shirt Saixia. She shrugged.
It was Zhong Zimo who said that.
When he said that we could pick up the supplies ourselves, he accidentally let slip that the management of City D was not satisfactory in every way, but they had a group of people with special abilities. Zhou Qing in front was already chatting with those psychics who were working hard to push the snow mountain. I have to say that although Zhou Qing is a bit silly on weekdays, he has a very approachable personality. You will be able to get along well with the people around you very quickly. After a while, Zhou Cheng returned to the RV and said to Huami, Sister Hua, do you have any wine? I told my 12 brothers that we want to get drunk. So, quickly, he has 12 brothers. Huami was a little surprised. Zhou Cheng makes friends too quickly. Fortunately, she won 1 million bottles of beer in the previous draws, which came in handy today. So Huami patted the toilet door of the nanny car, and when she opened the toilet door, 13 boxes of beer were instantly filled in. Huami said, Here, 1 box for each of you. You and your 12 brothers can drink it. You can drink, but you have to find out what's going on. Zhou Cheng couldn't understand why Sister Hua put 13 boxes of beer in the toilet of the nanny car when she went out. He scratched his head and stopped thinking about it. He just moved the beer out, set up a tent with his 12 new friends, and started drinking. It was at this time that Huami received a call from Gong Yi. I made an unexpected discovery. Chun, who might be in City D. Chun, who was actually in City D, and very likely had infiltrated the management level of City D. This was beyond Huami's expectations, but she was not surprised at all. Wasn't that what Chun who was like in his previous life? He is infiltrating everywhere and has connections everywhere. Looking out the car window, Zhou Cheng was drinking and singing with the 12 powerful people. Huami and Gong Yi exchanged some information. At present, Chun, who not only controls the management level of City D, he also has a superpower in his hands. In addition, they have been clearing the Xiangdi Expressway and transporting supplies back from Xiangqing. This is a bit infuriating. Although Huami had a lot of supplies, she had never thought of using these supplies to aid the enemy. It seems that we have to up the Hunandi Expressway. Huami was so angry that she clenched the plastic water cup in her hand and squashed it. Originally, I said that we would see the situation and up the Hunandi Expressway if necessary. But look, there are no normal survivors in D City. I don't know how many of the remaining people are Chun Hu's men. It is not allowed to aid the enemy. It is unforgivable. Wait a moment. Gong Yi on the other end of the phone suddenly realized something and asked in a cold voice, Tell me, where are you? After chatting for most of the day, he finally reacted. Judging from what Huami said, she is on Hunandi Expressway? Huami held up the phone, looking for a signal everywhere. Hello, hello. Hey, what kind of signal is this? Hello. Gong Yi's roar came from the phone.
Huami.
Do you want me to remind you how big your belly is now? It's almost 6 months. In a few days, your belly will be almost 6 months. Why are you running around? What if something happens? You're pretending. You're pretending for me. Huami, sorry, the number you called is out of service area. Beep. Just hang up the phone. Huami looked up and saw Shirt Saishia's shocked expression. She smiled at him. The signal is really bad. Shirt Saishia, who was sitting opposite Huami, had an expression that said you don't need to explain on his face. After a while, Shirt Saishia asked cautiously, Is this Xiangdi Expressway really going to be blown up? Blast it up. If I don't, I won't be named Hua. A cruel expression appeared on Huami's face. But I don't have any weapons to up the building. I'll call Chao Feng and ask him if he has any solution. In fact, it would be better to contact Gong Yi directly, but Huami's cell phone signal is not very good, so she can't contact Gong Yi.
Real.
Soon, Chao Feng's call was connected. After Huami told him the whole story, Chao Feng was silent for a moment on the other end of the phone. He said, I have to ask the commander about this matter. Sister Hua, I'll call you later. Look at the detour for the child. If Sister Hua wants to up the highway, can't she just call Gong Yi and let Gong Yi give the order to Chao Feng? Now Chao Feng has to ask for instructions from the bottom up. The sensitive Chao Feng noticed that there might be something wrong in the relationship between Sister Hua and the boss. He didn't dare to ask more questions and went to ask for instructions obediently. After a while, Chao Feng called Huami back. The boss said it as feasible. The boss told you to go back to Xiangqing as soon as possible, otherwise he will make you look bad, Sister Hua. Huami said, Tell him to bring the weapon over quickly and stop dithering. She did things so decisively that Chao Feng was speechless for a moment. At this time, the people with special abilities outside the car window had already started singing and dancing and were pulling Zhou Cheng to become brothers with them. Huami sat in the car window, quietly watching the heroic spirit of the group of men outside, and said to Shirt Saixia, "It seems that this group of superpowers are good, but I don't know if they know that they are working for people like Chun Hu." Shirt Saixia had no idea about this. Before Shirt Saixia could reply to Huami, her cell phone rang. It was Zhong Zimo calling. He brought up the old matter again on the phone, hoping that Shirt Saixia could use her relationship with Huami to sell large quantities of supplies to City D. Shirt Saixia glanced at Huami, who was sitting opposite her. She frowned and raised her beer-bottomed glasses on the bridge of her nose. "Brother, what do you want so many supplies for in City D? Not to mention anything else, the food and drinks alone amount to thousands of tons. It's not just one purchase, it requires multiple purchases. How many people are there in City D? I'm afraid there are less than 10,000 people left alive. In fact, ever since the Hunan D Expressway was cleared, that group of psychics have been transporting supplies to D City. Each time there is a large truckload of supplies, and if they are delivered continuously, the supplies will be enough for the people in City D to use." Shirt Saixia was really curious. Could they use up so many supplies? Zhong Zimo on the other end of the phone didn't know that Huami and the others were already well aware of the situation in City D. He lied. "There are many survivors in City D. There's nothing we can do about it. Stock up on supplies. We don't know how many natural and man-made disasters there will be in the future." As he spoke, Huami, who was sitting opposite Shirt Saixia, shook her head. It's a pity for Zhong Zimo. Now he has completely fallen to the same level as Chun Hu. But Zhong Zimo is still unaware of his situation. In essence, he is actually a very conceited person. He was behind bars, but he thought he could handle it and was full of confidence. Shirt Saixia sighed, and at Huami's suggestion, he reminded Zhong Zimo, "I heard that zombies have appeared now, and there are not many survivors in D City. Go from D City to Xiang City. Brother, why don't you look carefully to see if there are any zombies in your D City? Xiangqing and B City have already started self-inspection. Delete treats zombies as the public enemy of all survivors." Huami certainly hopes to have one more person to help and more strength. However, Zhong Zimo sneered, "What nonsense are you talking about? Do you think this is a suspense movie? I'm in City D. Where are the zombies?" "Shirt Saixia, if you don't want to sell supplies to us, just say so directly. Why are you using such a ridiculous lie to divert our attention?" Zhong Zimo was a little angry. He just hung up Shirt Saixia's phone. Mi Guiyuan, who was standing next to him smoking, came over and asked, "What's wrong? Rejected again?" Zhong Zimo sneered. "What do you mean there are zombies in D City? Let's check ourselves first. My girlfriend hasn't improved her abilities since she started following Huami, but her brain has become more and more crazy." Hearing this, Mi Guiyuan laughed out loud.
"Zombies?
"Where are they? If there really are zombies, I'd like to see them for myself." A few yellow-haired thugs nearby heard their conversation and couldn't help but burst into laughter. Just when the mixed group of administrators in City D were laughing at Shirt Saixia, Chao Feng led the team personally and brought a batch of artillery shells. He did not approach Huami and the others, but stopped at a far distance and called Huami's sister Hua. "I'm about to start. Why don't you go back to Xiangqing directly?" There's no way Huami would listen to Chao Feng. She responded, Yeah, you set off your firecrackers and I'll take a stroll." When she hung up the phone, she saw that the supply truck transported by the psychic had driven up and stopped in front of the nanny car. Huami immediately asked Shirt Saixia to get out of the car. In the snow, Shirt Saixia followed behind Huami with some uneasiness. "Ami, why don't you go back? Commander Zhou, and I will go to D." Before she could finish her words, a roar sounded behind her. Shirt Saixia turned around. Why was Chao Feng so quick? In the tent far away, a dozen or so supernatural beings who were sworn brothers with Zhou Cheng stood up with their necks propped up and looked in the direction of the explosion. Someone was drunk and said, "It's firecrackers." Some people rubbed their eyes and looked at the truck they were driving. "Hey, why do I feel like there's a pregnant woman standing next to our truck?" Huami was standing next to the big truck. She casually patted the truck's compartment, and the compartment full of supplies was emptied. All were recycled into her level 30, warehouse number 3. Seeing several people with special abilities staggering towards them, Huami made way and walked towards Zhou Cheng with Shirt Saixia. However, before Huami could open her mouth to talk to Zhou Cheng, a powerful person widened his eyes and said, "Something is wrong." Huami stopped. She thought that what she had done had been discovered by the psychic. So, she protected her stomach first, and her mind raced to find an excuse. "Who knows?" the powerful person said in a daze. "I seem to see a snow mountain collapse there," revealing a gas station. There were quite a few people walking out of it. As he spoke, he shook his head vigorously, squinted carefully, raised his hand, and pushed Shirt Saixia aside. Really, a lot of people came out of the gas station. Huami followed the gaze of the powerful person and looked back. Because Chao Feng blew up the highway, the snow on both sides began to slide. There was indeed a gas station that was blown up. But at the same time, after the thick ice layer was blown open, a large group of zombies appeared. Huami said ouch and quickly said to Shirt Saixia, "Zombies, zombies, look." The tone of his voice, as if he had seen some beautiful scenery, made Shirt Saixia look quickly. Shirt Saixia also turned around. With her eyesight, she could only see a dense crowd of people in the distance. They seemed to be coming towards us. There was also a small group that went in the opposite direction to look for Chao Feng and the others. Shirt Saixia realized it belatedly and turned around to ask Huami, "What now?" She couldn't be nervous because she couldn't see clearly at all, and the so-called zombies didn't move very fast. Shirt Saixia has not personally experienced the horror of these things. Huami smiled maliciously. "You should wake Zhou Cheng up now, get him organized, and prepare for battle. Maybe it's because of the jelly water and the snow, or some special reasons. The zombies in City D were trapped under the ice, so they couldn't escape. These people with special abilities have human consciousness and great strength, and they have the instinct and consciousness to save themselves on the road to survival. That's how they were able to get out of the ice. Although it seems that they themselves cannot seem to understand why they stand out." Shirt Saixia hurried to call Zhou Cheng, "Commander Zhou, Commander Zhou, the zombies are coming." As a result, Zhou Cheng was confused and sat cross-legged beside the fire, staring at Shirt Saixia in a daze. "No zombie is as good-looking as Xia Xia." Shirt Saixia patted Zhou Cheng's face. Quick, Commander Zhou, wake up. What should we do now?" Zhou Cheng was grinning foolishly beside the fire. He held Shirt Saixia's face in his hands and kissed her on the lips. Shirt Saixia was stunned and completely shocked. The snow was falling heavily. A group of drunken superpowers raised their hands and cheered at the zombies on the opposite side. "Yohu, dear survivors. Welcome to City D. It's not easy." With the frequent occurrence of disasters, their relatives and friends disappeared inexplicably or died directly. They became more and more lonely and felt more and more that City D was like a dead city. If it weren't for their great strength, they would be cleaning the streets and alleys of City D every day. Today, City D is probably buried in the snow just like City C. The reason why the thick snow on the streets and alleys of D City is cleared every day. It wasn't the administrator of City D who ordered them to do this. But they always felt that if City D was buried, their lives and memories would be sealed by this thick snow and ice. If City D still exists, one day this beautiful city will become lively again. Huami looked at this group of unreliable people and raised her eyebrows. Very good. She also played badly. The zombies growled and moved closer in slow motion. Huami jumped onto the roof of the truck, looked into the distance with her belly bulging, and estimated that there were at least 500 zombies in this gas station. Following the sound, only a few dozen of them headed towards Chao Feng. The rest were attracted by the psychics who were shouting excitedly and welcoming them with open arms. There is no need to worry about Chao Feng, as a big hole has been blown out on the highway surface, and the zombies will fall into the hole if they want to pass through. This is also a good opportunity for Chao Feng to see up close what zombies are. On the other hand, Huami was watching coldly. There was a person with special abilities who was extremely happy and took the initiative to run towards the group of zombies. "Hi, dear friends." "Oh my God." He ran, spun on the road, and ran back, with his arms outstretched, shouting, "Why don't these look like people? How should I put it?" It looked like these zombies had been trapped under the ice for a long time. Under the ice, their skin must no longer be like normal human skin. There are also some zombies that were bitten into a bloody mess by other zombies before they turned into zombies. Either the face has no flesh, or the arms and legs are missing, or one side of the body has flesh while the other side is just a skeleton. This is something that cannot be drawn with the current level of human makeup. Anyone who wants to treat them as Halloween won't be able to do so. Other people with special powers were still shouting excitedly. Li Haifu, who had come face to face with the zombies at close range, was now mostly sober. He ran back, clenching his fists and shouting, "This is terrible. These people are not human beings at all. Don't be happy anymore. Hurry up and run away." Run? Huami on the roof raised her eyebrows. Of course, she would fight zombies if she met them. Why would she run? Zombies have crystal cores in their brains. No one is born knowing how to fight zombies. Unless you are the favorite of God, who is given a second life. Huami also understood this logic, so even though she complained, she had no intention of interfering with the group of people's hasty escape. In fact, Huami also jumped off the truck. She planned to see where this group of people were going. Where can you run to? People with special powers are the mortal enemies of zombies, but they are also the chosen ones among the survivors. As people with special powers, it seems to have become their instinct to fight zombies when they see them. So this is the first time I've seen a psychic being so scared by zombies. Huami felt like laughing. At this time, Zhou Cheng had also become much more sober. With a red face, he let go of Shirt Saishia's face, tilted his head, and didn't know what to say. Just then, the 12 supernatural beings in front hurried over, shouting, "There are monsters! There are monsters!" Huami, with a big belly, followed them leisurely. Her walking posture seemed slow, but her speed was able to keep up with those adult men. Seeing this, Zhou Cheng hurriedly asked Huami, "Sister Hua, there are zombies. Why don't you fight them?" This doesn't fit Huami's personality. Shouldn't she rush over when she sees the zombies? Huami raised her hand and threw a Gatling gun to Zhou Cheng. He raised his hand again and threw a Gatling gun to Shirt Saixia. She said, "This is a chance for both of you to perform." After saying that, she followed the 12 powerful people and fled for her life. Zhou Cheng and Shirt Saixia were left alone, looking at each other. Then the two of them seemed to remember something at the same time. Their faces flushed, and they turned their heads away at the same time. Those psychics who had already run far away turned around and saw their brother Zhou Cheng standing there with a woman without moving. Someone shouted, "Zhou Cheng, what are you doing?"
Run.
Those are not human beings. They are monsters. Zhou Cheng did not move, but bravely raised the Gatling gun towards the zombies staggering towards him. At that moment, everyone felt that Zhou Cheng's image was very tall and noble. Even Shirt Saixia thinks so. Especially Zhou Cheng turned his head and said to Shirt Saixia, "Xia, hurry up and leave. I will deal with them. Let's go." After saying that, Zhou Cheng picked up the Gatling gun and started shooting at the zombies. Seeing this, the group of psychics who were about to run away thought that Zhou Cheng was extremely powerful. Shirt Saixia retreated a distance and looked down at the Gatling gun in his hand. Because Huami had explained everything to her along the way, she used her science brain to analyze it calmly. In fact, running is useless. Even if the monster doesn't chase them, it will hear the sound and chase other survivors. There is even some mysterious connection between them, and one zombie can call many other zombies to come. If you let them go today, they will still be blocking the road tomorrow. Therefore, the way to eliminate the trouble permanently is to kill these zombies. She studied the Gatling gun in her hand and started firing at the group of zombies coming from the opposite direction, just like setting off firecrackers during the New Year. The group of powerful people who were watching had their eyes wide open. They all stopped unconsciously.
Run.
Huami mixed in among them. "Why don't you run? The monster will catch up." Someone glanced at Huami and was startled. When did a pregnant woman appear here? They really didn't pay attention. They were just too frightened. Huami smiled at the supernatural beings around her who were looking at her. "You are so strong. I am a weak woman, so I can only run with you. Take me and escape." Just as these psychics and Huami were staring at each other, Zhou Cheng and Shirt Saixia in the front were already holding Gatling guns and sweeping away the hundreds of zombies. It's really cool to use Gatling gun to deal with groups of zombies. Basically, all the standing zombies were knocked to the ground by the dense bullets. Among them, most of the zombies did not die. They continued to crawl towards Zhou Cheng and Shirt Saixia, dragging their messy internal organs. The power-type mutants surrounding Huami were so scared that they screamed. Zhou Cheng pulled the trigger on the Gatling gun in his hand. No more bullets. Shirt Saixia's face turned pale. She had exerted too much energy just now, and the Gatling gun in her hand was out of bullets. The two of them turned around and looked at Huami together. At this time, they didn't know what to do, so it would be right to turn around and ask Huami. Huami pulled out 2 machetes from her back and threw them directly into the snow. Just chop off their heads. Shirt Saixia didn't dare. She had been following the rules all her life and had never killed a chicken. Now Huami told her to chop off a zombie's head? Zhou Cheng, on the other hand, had a strong psychological quality and had seen a zombie before. He picked up the machete in the snow without hesitation and pointed it at the nearest zombie that was crawling over. It was Zhou Cheng's first time cutting hair, so he was a little unskilled in the job. It took several cuts to cut it off. After cutting a few more zombies, Zhou Cheng's technique obviously became much more skilled. Huami was watching from the side and couldn't help but sigh. If an ordinary person can deal with zombies so cleanly and neatly, wouldn't it be even more amazing if it was someone with great strength? She really didn't care about the powerful people around her. At this time, these frightened power users finally reacted. Someone immediately took out his cell phone and reported to Zhang Jifeng in D-City about the appearance of zombies on the Hunan-D Expressway. Zhang Jifeng couldn't help but sneer on the other end of the phone.
"Zombies?
Are you kidding me? Zombies don't appear in D-City, but run on the highway? I think you guys are suffering from some serious illness. Hurry up and bring the supplies back. The survivors are waiting for them." After being scolded, Li Haifu looked at the hung-up phone and said angrily, "What the Hades? If it weren't for the survivors in City D, I wouldn't want to be mad at you." Huami, who was listening nearby, felt very strange. There are still survivors in D-City? I thought they all turned into zombies. After a pause, Huami seemed to realize that she had said something wrong and hurriedly tried to make amends. "My husband is in City D. He said that City D is now a deserted city." Li Haifu said embarrassedly, "There must be some survivors. There are many people in the management system." Moreover, Zhang Jifeng said that after the natural disaster is over, the people of City D who left their hometown will definitely return to City D. They are people with special powers and are not as helpless as ordinary survivors in the face of natural and man-made disasters. So they were recruited by the management of City D and volunteered to transport reserve supplies for City D. This is so that one day, the survivors who left City D will return to City D and find that there are sufficient supplies waiting for them at home. I bought movie tickets yesterday and said I would take my little Mimi to the movies today. I woke her up early in the morning, and after a lot of hassles, I went out and saw that I had bought tickets for tomorrow. These people with special abilities in City D made Me couldn't help but sigh. It turns out that in this life, looking at things from the perspective of someone who has experienced it makes them feel different. She also didn't know how the first group of people with superpowers who appeared in her previous life were chosen. Will someone take advantage of me in the end? By the time she reacted, the psychics had already taken an absolute leadership position among the surviving humans. And now these people with special abilities in City D have obviously been fooled. The reason used is still full of loopholes, but touching enough. This shows that these people with special abilities are still very naive. The mind remains at a stage where it has not yet reached complete despair. In other words, they haven't realized yet that the end of the world has already come. Huami didn't say anything else and turned to watch Zhou Cheng cutting the zombie's head. What surprised her was that Shirt Saixia tremblingly picked up the machete on the ground and gestured at a zombie more than 10 meters away. It seems that she wants to try to cut the zombies. Huami walked away a little and did not make another move. This is the growth that these people must go through. If she takes it all on, the survivors will probably never learn to fight zombies on their own. Seeing Zhou Cheng and the trembling Saixia being so brave, Li Haifu's group of superpowers also became eager to make a move. They can even move a mountain, so why don't they dare to kill zombies? Someone turned around and started looking for a knife. When they turned around, they saw Huami setting up a stall behind them. She set up a stall selling knives. There are all kinds of knives, long and short, machetes, paper cutters, all at a fixed price of 10 crystal cores each. What is a crystal core? Li Haifu came over and took a fancy to a tang sword on the stall. This tang sword was bought by Huami when she was shopping at the rescue center. It seemed to cost more than 100 yuan. She couldn't remember clearly, and now there were a lot of messy things in her level 30 storage. The weapons displayed on the stalls are just a drop in the bucket of this mess. Huami held a tang sword and walked to a nearby zombie head that was rolling over. Put one foot on the head and press hard. Just like stepping on a tomato, the head under his feet was crushed into pieces. Then, she used the tip of her tang sword to search through the pile of rotten tomatoes. Li Haifu and several other psychics looked pale. Among this group of people, Zhou Cheng is the most stable. But when Zhou Cheng saw Huami's actions, he couldn't help but look away. Can't bear to watch. Huami used the tip of the knife to expertly pick out a crystal stone the size of a pomegranate seed from the pile of brain matter. Here, this is the crystal core. 10 of these crystal cores can be exchanged for a knife. I can give you the knife on credit first. Although the crystal core is small, the energy contained in it is not small. For the time being, such a small crystal core can replenish the supernatural energy consumed by these supernatural beings. But it can't make up for Gong Yi's energy. Gong Yi's mental power is originally the most powerful in the supernatural system. He woke up earlier than anyone else. Therefore, his current supernatural energy can only be satisfied by using Huami's energy bead. From this we can see that the energy contained in the energy condensate bead is much greater than that of the crystal core. She told Gong Yi about everything related to zombies, and Gong Yi also explained it to Chao Feng and the others. And conduct strict self-inspection, and report immediately if any person with special abilities appears in the garrison team. Compared with wild superpowers like Li Haifu, Gong Yi's garrison team will receive all knowledge about zombies in a more systematic way. They don't have to experience the danger of zombies firsthand. These garrisons will memorize everything about zombies in advance. Li Haifu and others finally agreed to buy on credit. They felt that they should be able to overcome the psychological difficulties and find the pomegranate seed-sized crystal core from the pile of brain matter, even though the process was very difficult for them. From the moment they took over Huami's cold weapons, they have been constantly breaking through their own psychological defenses. Was the first time they chopped off a zombie's head, the first time they crushed a zombie's head, and the first time they endured the nausea and searched for the crystal core among a pile of debris. Just this process made them scream and shout, and it took them a whole day to finally find the crystal cores. During this period, Zhang Jifeng from City D called Li Haifu several times. Without exception, they all urged Li Haifu and other psychics to quickly deliver the supplies back to City D. At first, Li Haifu answered the phone, but in the end, he no longer had the heart to accept it. No matter who is going through such a fierce ideological struggle, at the critical moment of killing zombies and taking crystal cores, the phone keeps ringing. He was a little annoyed. We are obviously dealing with zombies here because they have to be eliminated. Sending supplies back to City D is not a very urgent matter. During the last call, Zhang Jifeng yelled at Li Haifu and the others. What are you planning to do? Can you still obey the orders of the D city management? I asked you to send the supplies back and then quickly go to Xiangqing to buy supplies. Are you deaf? Li Haifu was already very impatient. He used the tip of the knife to search for the crystal core in the brain tissue. Supplies, supplies, supplies. A lot of supplies have been shipped back to City D these days. There are only so many people. It will take half a year to eat them all. Why are you in such a hurry? You want to get out of management? Zhang Jifeng was so angry that he spoke without thinking and said all kinds of harsh words. But Li Haifu hung up the phone on Zhang Jifeng. There is no time to kill zombies. Zhang Jifeng punched the wall angrily. At this time, Zhong Zimo, who had noticed something was wrong, came over and asked, "Why haven't those recruited superpowers come back yet? They keep saying there are zombies. I think they want to escape from our control." Zhang Jifeng walked back and forth in the office with his hands on his hips. Zhong Zimo's face looked a little unhappy. The reason why he stayed here and was willing to cooperate with Zhang Jifeng and others to collect supplies from Xiangqing was all for Li Haifu and his group of supernatural people. With such a group of people with special abilities, anything can be done. But now, Zhang Jifeng told him that this group of people with special abilities went to fight the little monsters and did not obey orders. "Zhong Zimo, how about this? I'll go to the Xiangdi Expressway to have a look." He had to go and see what was going on. If he found Li Haifu and the others, Zhong Zimo could get closer to them. Zhang Jifeng's eyes rolled around in his sockets. He smiled politely. "You just came to D City. You are not familiar with everything here, and you don't know the personalities of Li Haifu and his group. How about this? I'll go, and you and Mi Guiyuan continue to find a way to buy supplies from Xiangqing." Zhong Zimo has money in his hands, and he absolutely cannot let Zhong Zimo run away. The section of the road where the zombies appeared is not far from City D. But not long after Zhang Jifeng drove out, the car got stuck in the snow and couldn't move. He was very irritable and kept complaining about Li Haifu causing him trouble along the way. Originally, the roads in D City were unobstructed because Li Haifu and his team would clean the streets and alleys of D City every day. Now Li Haifu and other people with special abilities have been delayed on the Hunan D Expressway for a long time. If we delay any further, City D will probably be buried in the snow. So wouldn't it be better for Li Haifu and his team to help transport supplies and clear roadblocks? He did not treat Li Haifu and other people with special abilities unfairly. Why are you so disobedient? People who are out of control and capable will never end well. As the night gradually fell, Zhang Jifeng was still cursing. Just then I saw a tall and slender man walking out from the wind and snow. He was dressed in black and only glanced at Zhang Jifeng with his sharp eyes before continuing to walk into City D. "Wait!" Zhang Jifeng shouted. "This man looks different from ordinary people." Based on Zhang Jifeng's long experience of dealing with people with special abilities, this man might also be a person with special abilities. After all, it is so cold that ordinary people wrap themselves up like dumplings, facing the wind and snow, and they are still hunched over. But this man in black stood straight, had a sharp aura, and was not afraid of the wind and snow. It looks like a long, sharp knife. Zhang Jifeng had long witnessed the power of people with special abilities, and he wanted to recruit all of them. This is a powerful force. Zhang Jifeng is very greedy and will not allow any powerful force to be used by others. Gong Yi stopped and turned his sharp eyes to look at Zhang Jifeng, asking with eyes, "What for?" Zhang Jifeng smiled and pointed at the car beside him that was deeply stuck in the snow. "Excuse me, can you help me get this car out of the snow?" Gong Yi lowered his eyes and looked at the wheels stuck in the snow. Without him moving, the whole car flipped over, turned a circle in the air, and stopped to the side. Zhang Jifeng's eyes widened. This is definitely a new type of supernatural power. And he is a more advanced and powerful psychic than the 12 strong psychics he has. When Zhang Jifeng saw Gong Yi was about to leave, he immediately chased after him and said, "Hello, I am the management commander of D City.
You are also a superpower, right?
Welcome to become a member of our D City management class. The survivors in City D need a powerful psychic like you to lead them through the maze and out of despair." Gong Yi took 2 quick steps forward impatiently. Zhang Jifeng, however, was like a dogskin plaster, trying hard to convince Gong Yi to join the management of City D. Gong Yi stopped in front of an open space and finally stopped. He turned around and looked at Zhang Jifeng, who had caught up with him, sneering. "You used this rhetoric to trick so many people with special abilities into working for you? What does it mean to enter the management level of D City for the survivors of D City? It means to serve D City." What a high-sounding and glorious statement. People who don't know the truth will really be fooled by Zhang Jifeng. Zhang Jifeng's face straightened, and he asked, "Why do you say that? How can this be a lie? It doesn't exist. I am the administrative commander of City D. Look, that's the administrative building over there. Can I take you to see it? Gong Yi didn't move. His eyes followed the direction of Zhang Jifeng's finger. There was sarcasm in his eyes. I have never heard of the D City's administrative commander named Zhang Jifeng. As the commander of a garrison system, Gong Yi is very familiar with the management level. He knew the name of the chief administrative officer of each city. Zhang Jifeng smiled, looking very kind and decent. There's nothing I can do. The management of City D has suffered from severe depletion. I'm the one who took over. Disasters happen frequently, and we are always busy saving people on the front line without caring about our own lives at all.
Alas.
He seemed to have really done these things, and his face showed his remembrance of his dead colleagues. Seeing this, Gong Yi wanted to strangle him to death. An angry Gong Yi pointed to the snow wall in front of him and said, "Your city is frozen with millions of zombies. As the commander-in-chief, you don't care about it? Now all the zombies are frozen and can't get out. But if the ice melts, the zombies won't be able to be contained. After all, Xiangqing is becoming more and more popular now." Huami said that these zombies would call their friends to gather together. As long as one zombie discovers Xiangqing, all the zombies in City D will run to Xiangqing. So Gong Yi had to take care of it. Zhang Jifeng paused, narrowed his eyes, and looked at Gong Yi suspiciously. This isn't that exaggerated. This isn't a movie. If there really are zombies, then City D will need people like you to serve even more. He began to suspect whether Gong Yi was in cahoots with Li Haifu. After all, Li Haifu was also talking about zombies. And if D City is really frozen with millions of zombies, then why can we still live well in D City? Right? It's not that exaggerated. Zhang Jifeng did not give up on fooling Gong Yi. After all, Gong Yi's ability was so powerful. If he could use it, his strength would be further improved. Gong Yi thought for a while and said, "Take me to your management building. There are tens of thousands of zombies frozen in this square." Gong Yi plans to visit every possible place in City D to get a thorough understanding of the city's inside and outs. Zhang Jifeng, however, thought that Gong Yi had agreed to work for him. He immediately took Gong Yi to the management building, and along the way, he kept talking about how abundant the supplies they had were. As long as Gong Yi joins the management of City D, he will be given enough supplies every day. As long as Gong Yi is obedient, Zhang Jifeng will not treat him badly. Gong Yi paused for a moment and looked sideways at Zhang Jifeng, who was a head shorter than him. "You guys do this often? Use generous resources to attract people with special abilities to work for you? And those supplies were all purchased from Xiangqing." Under Gong Yi's powerful aura, Zhang Jifeng was stunned. He responded with a serious look on his face. "This is just a small gift from us to the administrators who are willing to contribute. Supplies are not important. What's important is that we are truly contributing to City D."
Oh.
Gong Yi didn't believe him. Just as he took a long step and followed Zhang Jifeng into the management building. The entire building, more than 500 meters underground, was seen by Gong Yi. At this time, Zhang Jifeng received a call. They still knew how to come back. What, zombies or not? They encountered zombies. How did they come back? The person who called Zhang Jifeng was an administrator. The report was made by Li Haifu and his gang, who had already defeated the zombies. They finally took all the crystal cores from the zombies' brains. Then, he drove the truck, looking disheveled and in a mess, and returned to City D with Huami, Zhou Cheng, and Shi Caixia. It is impossible to go to Xiangqing now because the Xiangdi Expressway has been bombed. After Chao Feng dealt with the zombies that fell into the bottom of the pit, he set up a checkpoint on the opposite side and equipped it with white phosphorus bombs given by Huami. Once a large number of zombies come over, they will be treated with white phosphorus bombs. So Li Haifu and others returned to City D even though they were very dissatisfied with Zhang Jifeng. They didn't know the identities of Huami and Zhou Cheng. They just thought that Huami, Zhou Cheng, and Shi Caixia were all survivors who fled to City D. Therefore, he generously invited Huami and Zhou Cheng to go to City D together. When they arrived at the gate of D City, Li Haifu was still saying to Huami, Don't worry, although D City doesn't have as many supplies as Xiong City, and the living environment is not as good as Xiong City. But we have been delivering supplies to the D City Management Building. There are a lot of supplies there, enough to last you until you give birth. These people with special abilities are actually very grateful and admire Huami in their hearts. He did not treat Huami with disrespect just because she was a pregnant woman. They felt that Huami knew a lot, and it was because of Huami's on-site guidance that they were able to recognize the zombies so smoothly. Also obtained a lot of crystal cores. There was a supernatural person nearby who came over excitedly and said to Li Haifu, "Brother Li, I used to feel something was wrong every day. My body felt uncomfortable as if bugs were crawling on it. Today I realized that it was because I had overdrawn my supernatural energy. If their energy has never been replenished sufficiently, they will not know how wonderful it feels to be full of energy. Now they hold the crystal core in their hands, and the energy in the crystal core will be linked to their bodies. This is a very magical feeling. They can clearly feel that their bodies are like a sponge. Absorbed all the energy in the crystal core into his body." After the psychic finished speaking to Li Haifu, he looked at Huami with gratitude and bowed to her. "Thank you, Sister Hua, for helping us understand ourselves a little better." He had heard Zhou Cheng call her Sister Hua, so all of them who were using special abilities followed Zhou Cheng in calling her Huami. Huami waved her hand and continued to say to Li Haifu, "But I heard that many teams don't like the elderly, the weak, the sick, the disabled, and pregnant women. If you just send me back to City D, those administrators won't cause trouble for me, right?" Li Haifu was stunned. Then he remembered that in fact, D City had never received the elderly, the weak, the sick, the disabled, and the pregnant for such a long time. Where are those survivors who were classified as the elderly, the weak, the sick, the disabled, and pregnant? While Li Haifu was thinking, a yellow-haired man led a group of men with colorful hair and walked towards them on the snow. Huang Mao looked at Li Haifu and said, "Brother Zhang told you to hurry back to the management building to report. Leave this to us." As he spoke, his malicious eyes swirled around Huami and Shirt Saisha's faces. Shirt Saisha was not very good-looking, and her pair of thick beer-bottom glasses made her look ugly. Huami is still prettier. What a pity, she's a pregnant woman. The yellow-haired man's eyes fell on Huami's belly. Her belly wasn't big, so it was a good opportunity to help her abort the baby. As if aware of the yellow-haired man's malicious gaze, Huami looked over coldly. This kind of gaze made her feel very familiar. Familiar routine, familiar formula, and coming soon, familiar blood. As if a fish had finally returned to the sea, Huami showed just the right amount of panic and weakness towards Huang Mao. She is very skilled in this area. Oh, she is a weak pregnant woman who cannot take care of herself. A hint of scornful laughter came from the yellow-haired man's throat. No one knew what he was about to do to Huami. The beautiful pregnant woman will have many cruel and tolerant ones. He set his eyes on Shirt Saixia again. Since she was a young woman, he couldn't let her go. Zhou Cheng moved forward, blocking half of Shirt Saixia and half of Huami. There's no way, he's not that wide. Zhou Cheng looked at the yellow-haired man with a look of despair. He is tall and strong, and the aura he has developed from his years of garrison life is something that a wicked street urchin like Huang Mao cannot compare to. Shirt Saixia raised her eyes and stared at Zhou Cheng's back in a daze. At this moment, the only feeling is peace of mind.
What are you looking at?
Zhou Cheng asked Huang Mao. This yellow-haired guy may be used to being arrogant. Since the loss of order, he has never met anyone who dares to challenge him. He spat on the ground and looked at Zhou Cheng. What are you looking at? Do you know whose territory we are on now? Don't think that you can be so rude to him just because you are tall and strong. If you want to enter City D, you have to see if Huang Mao agrees. If he disagrees and makes up an excuse to report it, Zhang Jifeng will not let Zhou Cheng enter the city. So Zhou Cheng dared to stare at him like that? Zhou Cheng, a righteous and upright man, clenched his fists so hard that they made a crackling sound. Perhaps it was because the garrison was born with a righteous spirit that he disliked the yellow-haired guy who stood in an untidy manner, had cloudy eyes, and an evil look. Zhou Cheng's voice was sonorous and powerful. No matter whose territory this is, Don't try to play street tricks on me.
So what?
The yellow-haired man was nonchalant. He waved his hand, and a group of people behind him surrounded Zhou Cheng. He didn't take Zhou Cheng seriously at all. Although Zhou Cheng was taller and stronger than him, and his fists seemed to be harder than his. But so what? There are more yellow-haired people than Zhou Cheng. The atmosphere was tense for a moment. Li Haifu and others were shocked by Huang Mao's arrogance. When he realized what was happening, Li Haifu immediately stepped forward and said to Huang Mao, "This is my brother. Please give him some respect and don't embarrass him." He was still very loyal and did not leave immediately just because Huang Mao asked them to leave. Facing Li Haifu, the supernatural being, Huang Mao was full of arrogance. "What do you mean by brothers or not? Li Haifu, you are now working for the management of D City. Don't be so stupid." He pointed at Zhou Cheng behind Li Haifu, his eyebrows flying up to the sky. "I'm telling you, D City is our world now. D City doesn't welcome you now, get out of here." Zhou Cheng's face was cold, and he clenched his fists. "If you don't want to leave, so what? What do you want to do?" The two men seemed to be meeting on a narrow road, with tensions rising and neither of them willing to give in. Zhou Cheng grasped the yellow-haired man's fist in his palm. He just twisted it lightly, and Huang Mao's face turned pale with pain. Huang Mao screamed, and the street urchins around him stood there looking at each other in confusion. They realized that Zhou Cheng was also a person with superpowers. Zhou Cheng was not. He was tempered in the garrison all year round. He is definitely stronger than an ordinary man. Although he cannot compare with Li Haifu and others, it is still very easy for him to break Huang Mao's wrist. Shirt Saixia, who was standing behind Zhou Cheng, took a deep breath. Her eyes were hidden by thick lenses, but her face was raised, staring blankly at Zhou Cheng, who was standing in front of her. In extreme environments and among harsh people, having a man can give her a sense of security. It made her heart beat faster than any flowers or vows of love. Li Haifu and others looked very bad. When Zhou Cheng let go of the yellow-haired man, Li Haifu stepped forward and stood in front of Zhou Cheng. He said to the grinning yellow-haired man, "I've already told you that this person is my brother and my friend, but you want to drive my friends away.
What do you mean by that?"
D City has been maintained with great effort until now. Isn't it just to provide a safe place for the survivors to stay? For the first time, Li Haifu and other people with special abilities began to doubt the original intention of the management of City D. Huang Mao held his twisted hand, shrank back, and said sarcastically, "Go ahead and dream about giving the survivors a safe place to stay. It's such a time, and you are still so naive." These street urchins often make fun of Li Haifu and others in private. Even if they were blessed with the strength to move mountains and fill the sea, what did it matter? In the end, they still had to work for them, just for a little bit of supplies. They laughed at the naivety of Li Haifu and others, looking down on them for being stupid and naive. However, he lived in City D, which was cleared out by Li Haifu and other psychics, and enjoyed the supplies transported back from Xiangqing by Li Haifu and others.
Laugh.
A laugh, full of sarcasm, came from behind Zhou Cheng. "It's Hua Mi." She held her waist, walked out with her pregnant belly, and smiled at Huang Mao and others. "You are so ridiculous." The status of people with special abilities and ordinary survivors is completely reversed here. It was not like this in the previous life. Ordinary survivors in the previous life would bow and nod when they saw people with special powers. The one with a haughty look on his face is the one with superpowers. Huang Mao pointed at Hua Mi with murderous intent on his face. "You stinky witch, the men are talking here. Why are you talking so much?
Man?
Are you worthy?" Hua Mi looked over with a smile, and suddenly slashed at him with a knife. She chopped off the yellow-haired man's finger that was pointing at her nose. The thick finger fell into the white snow, clean and without much blood. Hua Mi had no expression on her face. "I hate it most when people point their fingers at me." Her movements were so fast that no one except Zhou Cheng could even see how she drew her sword. Zhou Cheng rubbed his eyes. He saw Hua Mi's knife, which seemed to be conjured up.
Ah.
The yellow-haired man realized it later. He covered his broken finger, which was bleeding profusely. Sweat broke out on his forehead, and he flew into a rage. He was referring to Huami, a pregnant woman. Li Haifu and other psychics turned pale. They were all adult men, and they all understood what Huang Mao meant. Before a group of street thugs rushed over, Li Haifu and others bravely stood in front of Huami. Li Haifu said to Huang Mao with an unpleasant expression, "Aren't you too cruel? She's a pregnant woman, and you want to kill her in this way?" A street kid stepped forward, but was pushed back more than 10 meters by a powerful person. When the remaining street urchins saw this, they suddenly realized that Li Haifu and others were actually people with immense powers. This force could be used to clear obstacles in the city or to transport supplies. It is also possible to easily push a person more than 10 meters away. As a result, no street urchin dared to come forward. Huang Mao was so angry that smoke was coming out of his head. He raised his hand with broken fingers and yelled at Li Haifu, "You idiot! Whose side are you on? This witch cut off all my fingers. Why don't you help me twist her head off?" Li Haifu was also furious. He turned around and yelled at the yellow-haired man, "We are not here to help you bully the elderly, the weak, the sick, the disabled, and the pregnant. You really have a problem with your thinking." These people with special abilities were moved by the ideas promoted by Zhang Jifeng of D-City and joined the management of D-City in order to jointly build a beautiful home for mankind. The yellow-haired man continued to curse, "I've already said that this is the end of the world. Your ideas are outdated. What's the point of having a pregnant woman like this?" The pain made Huang Mao lose his mind, and the filth in his heart could no longer be concealed. He continued to curse, "If it weren't for the fact that this pregnant woman is still a bit pretty, I wouldn't even want to get close to her. Ugh." Li Haifu was shaking with anger. All the power users wondered if they were deceived by Zhang Jifeng. Huami was protected by Zhou Cheng, Shi Caixia, Li Haifu, and other power users. She began to instigate, "I'm a pregnant woman, my husband doesn't want me, and I have no parents. If I leave alone, where can I go?" The yellow-haired man yelled at her, "It's none of my business. You can't leave now if you want to. I'm going to kill you, absolutely." "Huami, no, I'm almost 6 months pregnant. If you kill me, it will be 3 lives." Li Haifu and the others looked back and thought that Sister Hua was 7 or 8 months pregnant. It turns out she was pregnant with twins. Looking at Huang Mao and others again, Huang Mao's eyes were full of hatred. He stared at Huami as if he was staring at his century-old enemy. Those street urchins all had indifferent expressions on their faces. No one would think that it was a big deal that Huami lost 3 lives. Li Haifu and other superpowers felt even more disappointed. "I didn't know it before when there was no comparison, but now that there is a pregnant old, weak, sick, and disabled person, the coldness of the yellow-haired group of street urchins is immediately highlighted. Not only is it cold and indifferent, it is also horrifyingly cruel. Even if Huami cut off Huang Mao's fingers, she wouldn't be punished like this, right?" To be honest, Li Haifu and others have never used such means to deal with the murderers of their fathers. Huang Mao was in so much pain that he had no patience left. He ordered Li Haifu in a commanding manner, "A good dog doesn't block the road. Get out of my way quickly and help me kill that pregnant woman. Otherwise, you can forget about staying in D-City. I will tell Brother Zhang to remove you from the D-City management system." Huami laughed when she heard it. Li Haifu has given up on the management of City D. He turned around and said to Zhou Cheng and Huami with an apologetic look on his face, "I'm sorry. I promised you that D-City is a good place, and I wanted you to settle down, but..." Zhou Cheng put a hand on Li Haifu's shoulder and said, "Don't be discouraged. You just followed the wrong team. There are still good places in this world. If there is no room for you here, you can go to Xiangqing." Looking at the yellow-haired man again, his face was pale, and he seemed unaware that he had already squeezed out Zhang Jifeng's greatest reliance. Haha, D-City has so many supplies, and now with Zhong Zimo bringing in funds, are Li Haifu and other supernatural people really willing to leave? Anyway, Huang Mao doesn't really believe it. He always felt that if he were Li Haifu, he would never be willing to leave City D. But Li Haifu nodded, his eyes firm. "We have also heard that Commander Gong is strict in his management of his subordinates. We go to Xiangqing every day. It is indeed a good place. In fact, if it weren't for Zhang Jifeng's fantastic plans and countless promises made to them. Li Haifu and others also planned to seek refuge in Xiangqing. Now that the true face of the D city management has been seen through by Li Haifu and others, will they stay here and help the evildoers instead of leaving? We're leaving now. Li Haifu didn't want to stay here for even a minute. The rest of the psychics had the same idea as Li Haifu. Their treatment in City D was not necessarily very good. They also have to watch the so-called D city administrators bully pregnant women. It's better to go to Xiangqing. Everyone was about to leave, but Huami and Zhou Cheng remained silent, silently supporting Li Haifu and the others. Just when everyone turned around to leave, Huang Mao realized that something bad had happened. He shouted, "Li Haifu, you really dare to leave? Are you not going to be the administrator of D City anymore?" I just wanted to scare Li Haifu. As a result, Li Haifu really turned around and planned to leave City D. Huang Mao was a little panicked. He didn't have time to deal with his broken finger and hurried to call Li Haifu back. Li Haifu was determined to leave, and no one could change his mind with just a few words from Huang Mao. So Huang Mao instructed his street thugs, "Go, stop them all." A tough guy came forward and grabbed the arm of a powerful person. "Don't leave." But before he could finish his words, he was thrown away by the powerful person with a casual flick of his arm. The remaining street urchins were reminded of the difference between people with special abilities and ordinary people. They are ordinary people, while Li Haifu and others are people with special abilities. How could they stop Li Haifu and other psychics from leaving? Huang Mao was both angry and anxious, and could only watch helplessly as Li Haifu and the other group of people left. He could only call Zhang Jifeng. At this time, Zhang Jifeng was chasing Gong Yi. When Gong Yi heard Zhang Jifeng say that the pregnant woman brought back by Li Haifu should be driven out of City D, he did not stay in the management building for long. His face turned ashen and he turned and walked out of the building. At this time, he was almost at the entrance to the city. I happened to run into Huang Mao and other street urchins. Zhang Jifeng hung up the phone with Huang Mao, looking extremely embarrassed. He growled from a distance, "What are you doing? I asked you to drive away that pregnant woman, but I didn't ask you to drive away Li Haifu and the others as well." Originally, Zhang Jifeng went out of the city to find Li Haifu and find a way to bring Li Haifu and other people with special abilities back to City D. As a result, Li Haifu came back with his men, but was driven away by Huang Mao. What a bad teammate. Huang Mao covered his hand with his broken fingers, looking angry. Who knows what the relationship between Li Haifu and that pregnant woman is? He actually betrayed us for that pregnant woman. It's really hateful. As soon as he opens his mouth, he starts to complain. Zhang Jifeng looked annoyed. "All right, hurry up and chase him. I don't care how low you stand, just get him back for me." Huang Mao responded, then hesitated. "So, that pregnant woman?" Zhang Jifeng's eyes revealed a hint of murderous intent. "Get it back first. Now is not the time to break up with Li Haifu. Bring it back and keep it under your nose, and there will be plenty of opportunities to get rid of this burden." He didn't notice that just when Zhang Jifeng wanted to kill Huami, a pair of eyes cast at the back of his neck. Sharp and cold. Zhang Jifeng seemed to sense something and turned around suddenly, only to see Gong Yi standing behind him without any other movement. He was somewhat doubtful and looked at Gong Yi carefully. Gong Yi was still dressed in black, with an imposing and cool aura. Standing in the wind and snow, he seemed to have merged into this extreme weather. Zhang Jifeng thought it might be his illusion. He smiled and explained to Gong Yi, "Alas, I have too many people under my command. It's hard to predict their minds and lead the team. Don't be scared by these rascals. Our D city management is pretty good. I'll take you out for some entertainment later." Gong Yi didn't smile, but looked at Zhang Jifeng expressionlessly. He knew that what Zhang Jifeng called entertainment was taking him to manage the second floor below ground level of the building. All kinds of women were imprisoned there. The entire management building is filled with supplies. These women are there just to entertain the administrators. Huang Mao led people to chase Huami and the others, but they didn't have to go far before they caught up with Huami and the others. In fact, Huami and Zhou Cheng would not let Li Haifu and other psychics go far. They originally came here for the zombies in City D. These zombies haven't been dealt with yet, so they can't just go back like this. So after leaving D-City, Hua-Mi and the others came to where the truck and the nanny car were parked. Hua-Mi said, "There are still zombies in this city. How about we fight them before going to Xiang City?" Zhou Cheng nodded immediately. "I agree." Shirt Saixia, agree. Li Haifu and the others also nodded slowly. I only heard Li Haifu say, "Then shall we go back? I feel a little sick and don't want to work for Zhang Jifeng anymore." Hua-Mi, "We are just fighting zombies and hunting for crystal cores. What does it have to do with them? Could it be possible that Zhang Jifeng would send someone to help us fight the zombies?" The 12 psychics shook their heads in unison. Definitely not. In fact, Zhang Jifeng denied it very decisively, and there were zombies frozen in City D. Zhou Qing said, "That's what we've decided. When my brother comes out from inside, we'll discuss how to fight the zombies in this city." Li Haifu looked at Zhou Cheng with some surprise. "Brother Zhou, you have a brother in City D? Is he as chivalrous and brave as you?" Zhou Cheng Chao Hua-Mi raised his chin. "Of course, my brother is her man. My brother is very powerful. He will not let any zombie in the city go." There was a moment of silence. Li Haifu suddenly asked, "Didn't they say that Sister Hua's man abandoned his wife and children?" In the blink of an eye, she went to explore zombies in D-City again. Everyone clearly heard Hua-Mi shouting that she was abandoned by her husband. Now a woman with such a big belly is walking alone in such a harsh environment. Either their husbands died, or they were abandoned by their husbands. No one doubted what Hua-Mi had just shouted. Before Zhou Cheng and Hua-Mi could answer Li Haifu, Gong Yi appeared with a dark face. "Gong Yi, I heard it." He glared at Hua-Mi and walked over angrily. "Can you explain it to me? I have never seen a woman who ruins her husband's reputation everywhere. What do you mean by abandoning his wife and children? He is clearly the best husband and the best father in this apocalypse. How could Hua-Mi have the nerve to say such a thing?" "Hua-Mi, it was a slip of the tongue." Without waiting for Gong Yi to speak, she hugged Gong Yi's arm and changed the subject loudly. "Okay, let's talk about the serious matters. Now our people are all gathered together. Think about it. How can we kill all the zombies that are frozen in the city?" Gong Yi took a deep breath. Hua-Mi's skill in changing the subject was becoming more and more mature. Looking at other people, when faced with the couple's household affairs, they all looked at their noses, with an expression as if they didn't see anything. Gong Yi quietly held Hua-Mi's hand, wrapped her small hand in his warm big hand, and said in a deep voice, "Find a place to settle down first. Zhang Jifeng's people are coming. He won't join us in killing zombies, and it's very likely that he'll even hinder our actions. Gong Yi is a natural leader, even if he doesn't introduce himself. There is no need to reveal his identity. As soon as he opens his mouth, others will naturally do what he says." Li Haifu and others set up a large tent outside City D using the waterproof tarpaulin provided by Hua-Mi. A folding table was set up in the tent. Gong Yi found a map of city buildings in City D, marked a few red circles on it, and was studying the map. Zhang Jifeng's voice was heard outside. "Hey, why are you guys here setting up tents? Come on, come back to the D City Management Building with me. It's freezing cold. You can't torture yourself like this." As they were talking, Zhang Jifeng walked in from outside with Huang Mao and other street urchins. A face full of sorrow. Li Haifu and others in the tent were silent, still doing their own things. "I don't really want to bother with Zhang Jifeng, this extremely hypocritical person." Seeing this, Zhang Jifeng looked at Gong Yi, who was studying a map at the table. Seeing that Gong Yi never looked up at him, he came over with a flattering look on his face and took the initiative to sit next to Gong Yi. "I said brother. Who is your brother?" Gong Yi raised his eyes, his gaze was sharp and a little cold. "Are you worthy enough to be my brother?" His brothers were all stationed there, so how could someone like Zhang Jifeng be qualified? Zhang Jifeng looked awkward and wanted to get angry, but he saw several shells placed behind Gong Yi. The pupils in his eyes shrank. I don't even know where Gong Yi and Li Haifu, these group of superpowers, got those shells from. He immediately smiled and said, "It's actually just a misunderstanding. In this extreme weather, everyone is in a bad mood. Everyone should understand. Then he looked at Li Haifu and said, I've brought Huang Mao here. Let him apologize to you. Okay? Then, Zhang Jifeng looked coldly at the yellow-haired street urchin standing at the door of the tent and yelled, Why don't you apologize quickly? The yellow-haired guy brought a group of street urchins with him, all with a look of dissatisfaction on his face. They suppressed their anger and bowed to Li Haifu and the other 12 power users in the big tent. I'm sorry. What the Hades? The monsters that they used to tease like fools are now collectively becoming traitors. They still have to bow and apologize to monsters like Li Haifu? Huang Mao and the other street urchins were so aggrieved. The key is that people with special abilities like Li Haifu are unwilling to show any mercy. Only Li Haifu was seen. He didn't even look at Huang Mao. After finishing the work in his hands, he came to Gong Yi. Huang Mi was at the other end of the big tent, arranging some inflatable mattresses. She also bought this batch of inflatable mattresses from a stall in Xiangqing. Crystal cores have not yet been circulated as currency, so the main means of transaction is still money. Every once in a while, Huang Mi would give Qi Chuan hundreds of millions of dollars and ask him to collect supplies for her. A wide variety of supplies. All the collected materials were placed in the Sea City material warehouse. After a while, Huang Mi will go to the supply warehouse in City C to collect them. Seeing that Li Haifu didn't care about Huang Mao at all, Huang Mi raised her eyebrows and said nothing. Then I heard Zhang Jifeng ask Gong Yi, Hey, what kind of map is this? Is there any supplies in this red circle? All he had eyes for was supplies. Gong Yi couldn't help but sneer, and pointed at the red circle with his rough long finger. There are zombies everywhere. The red circle is the explosion point. As he spoke, Gong Yi looked at Zhang Jifeng's flushed face. I told you a long time ago that there is a zombie in City D, and they are mainly frozen in these locations. Blast a few holes here, and here to let the zombies come out on their own. Gong Yi explained to him, holding a marker in his hand, We just stand outside and fight them one by one. He spoke the battle plan professionally and concisely. According to his plan, there is no need to call upon the garrisons in his and Zhou Cheng's hands for the time being. He and Li Haifu and 12 other psychics are enough. Zhang Jifeng continued to laugh awkwardly. What are you talking about, zombies or not? Before he could finish his words, Gong Yi interrupted Zhang Jifeng. You may not believe it, but the woman who manages the basement level 2 of your building must be dismissed as soon as possible. The management building is full of termites. A group of termites dancing desperately on top of the zombies. In fact, these people don't deserve to die. But Gong Yi took a walk around the management building. There are many innocent women on the underground second floor of this management building who were captured by them for various reasons. At least these women are innocent. Before dealing with the zombies, get these women out of the management building first. Otherwise, if things go wrong, any zombie might run into the management building. Then the people in this building will become zombies on the first floor. The expression on Zhang Jifeng's face continued to turn red and finally turned purple. Facing the righteous Gong Yi, he cursed inwardly and forced a smile on his face. Well, let's talk about this later. Let's go back first. I'm informing you, not asking you. Gong Yi lowered his head and looked at the watch on his wrist. In another hour, I will take action. Action. Break into the management building and release all the women on the B2 floor. Zhang Jifeng couldn't bear it any longer. He slammed the table, stood up, pointed at Gong Yi and roared, Who the Hades are you? Gong Yi looked up at him from the bottom up. Didn't I introduce myself? My surname is Gong and my given name is Yi. As soon as he said this, not only Zhang Jifeng was stunned, but even Li Haifu and other psychics were also shocked.
Gong Yi?
He came to City D? Especially Zhang Jifeng, who seemed to have thought of something, and his face turned pale. The yellow-haired man behind him took 2 steps forward, with a filthy and ill-intentioned look on his face, and asked in a low voice, Who is Gong Yi? He asked who Gong Yi was? Zhang Jifeng turned around and slapped the yellow-haired guy. Shut up. Then, Zhang Jifeng looked unhappy, his eyes rolled around in his eye sockets, and he immediately bowed to Gong Yi. I'm sorry, I didn't recognize the great man. I will follow your instructions and go back to take the woman on the second floor back home. Before he could finish his words, He suddenly pulled out a dagger from his sleeve and stabbed it into Gong Yi's heart. Zhang Jifeng shouted loudly with a distorted face, "Go to Hades."
Gong Yi, right?
Today, he'll send the garrison commander, who controls the 4 cities of Xiangqing, City A, City B, and City C, to meet the king of Hades. During this period, how many crimes did Zhang Jifeng and Chen Hu commit? Fortunately, there was no garrison in D City. All the garrisons in D City were consumed by the continuous natural disasters and man-made disasters. Even Sun Shiping, the garrison commander of City D, died while trying to rescue people. Otherwise, Zhang Jifeng would not have dared to kidnap so many innocent women and keep them on the underground second floor for the men's entertainment. He knew that what he had done would definitely not be tolerated by the garrison. So Zhang Jifeng, who wanted to strike first, was torn into pieces. His body flew out and exploded into a large blood lotus directly outside the tent. No one could see clearly how Gong Yi made his move. Maybe he didn't make a move at all. Inside the tent, Huang Mao and the others stared for a long time before they reacted. They were so scared that they knelt on the ground and shouted loudly, "Mercy, mercy! We will go back now and send all the women away safely. We will do it right away." Gong Yi looked up at them, waved his hand, and asked them to go back and report the news. Only after Huang Mao and the others left in a hurry did Huami stand at the door of the tent thoughtfully, looking in the direction of the management building. She asked Gong Yi, "Chen, who is not in that management building?" Everyone knows that there are more than just Zhang Jifeng, Huang Mao, and others in this management building. There must be many men who do evil things. Some people may not deserve to be put to death, but some people have committed so many evil deeds that dying 1,000,000 times would be a light punishment. Gong Yi shook his head, picked up his coat beside him, stood up and walked behind Huami. He put the coat on her. "It's not there. We have to look for it again. Look carefully." Huami sneered after hearing this. "This Chen, who is really good at hiding, where did he go?" "No one knows. Maybe Chen, who has run very far away, or he may be nearby." The management building of City D actually has little to do with Chen Hu. This place is like a stronghold of Brother Fan. Chen Hu's shadow is behind it, but it has developed into this place on its own. Listening to Gong Yi's explanation, Shirt Saixia beside him was confused. How could they develop into such a big cancer just by their own efforts? This is too unbelievable. Such a big cancer, who knows how many innocent women it has harmed. For Shirt Saixia, who grew up in a peacetime, to imagine this. Huami couldn't help laughing and turned to look at Shirt Saixia. Maybe it's true. Think about it, they are lawless now and no one cares about them at all. Once a person starts to do evil, his power will expand very quickly. Because you can eat your fill by following them, you don't have to do anything, and there are also fat and thin women to play with and choose from. Even men with good hearts would run to them for help. It is easy for people to become bad, but it is quite difficult to become good. So Chen, who is not here, he doesn't have to do it himself, he just needs to sow a seed of evil. It can gather a large number of believers. As he spoke, Zhou Cheng hurried into the tent and said to Gong Yi and Huami, "Someone came out of City D." Zhong Zimo and Mi Guiyuan walked out of City D with a large group of men and women. They seemed to have just experienced a violent dispute, and Huang Mao and other street urchins were nowhere to be seen. Seeing the tent set up by Li Haifu and his team, Zhong Zimo and Mi Guiyuan looked at each other. Mi Guiyuan was the first to run forward and stood outside the tent with an excited look on his face. "Commander Gong, we finally got your help." As he spoke, his eyes became red, and he followed the group of crying women behind him. This scene really looks like a movie. It was as if Gong Yi was a god sent from heaven, saving the suffering survivors. Mi Guiyuan tried desperately to express his gratitude. Zhong Zimo also glanced at Shirt Saixia in the tent, walked up and thanked Gong Yi. "What?" "It's all thanks to Commander Gong. Without Commander Gong, we would be stuck in the quagmire forever. Commander Gong is so wise and brave." Huami frowned when she heard it. She tilted her head and looked at Gong Yi. If the man was a little bit worse in character, he would have become arrogant at this moment. Gong Yi was fine. Even though Mi Guiyuan and Zhong Zimo came over deliberately with obvious intentions of currying favor with him. He just raised his eyebrows and said calmly, "You guys take care of the survivors. I have something else to do." As a garrison commander who is dedicated to getting things done, he faces a lot of flattery on a daily basis. If a man like him could become arrogant, he would have done so long ago. Seeing Gong Yi turning around and getting busy, Hua Mi felt relieved. Turning back again, she saw Zhong Zimo standing outside the tent. Of course, Zhong Zimo also discovered Hua Mi, but what he was thinking about now was how to jump onto Gong Yi's boat. He didn't take Hua Mi seriously. It was at this time that a heavily made-up woman suddenly rushed out from the crowd of women. She yelled at Hua Mi, "Why did you bring us out here? It's freezing outside. Do you want to freeze us to death? Hua Mi, you are as vicious as ever." Everyone looked closely. If this person wasn't Qin Xiaolan, who else could it be? However, this Qin Xiaolan was very different from the original Qin Xiaolan. She was dressed thinly, looked dusty, and her face was covered with thick powder like the bottom of a wall. Mainly, she looked at Hua Mi with resentment, as if Hua Mi was the culprit who ruined her good life. Hua Mi frowned, staring at Qin Xiaolan, who looked resentful towards her, and sneered, "What does it have to do with me? I'm not the one who is going to save you. If you have the guts, just go back." It seems like Hua Mi is meddling in other people's business. In fact, after meeting Gong Yi, Hua Mi came here just to make a cameo appearance. In the battle plan he formulated, there was no opportunity for Hua Mi to personally fight the zombies. Gong Yi directly arranged Hua Mi into the tent to guard the supplies. So the one who had to save Qin Xiaolan and other women was Gong Yi, and Hua Mi was just watching from the side. Her eyes swept over Zhong Zimo. The look in Zhong Zimo's eyes was unclear, and he said nothing. It was obvious that he was just there to enjoy the show and had no intention of saying a single fair word. He doesn't like Qin Xiaolan, and of course, he doesn't like Hua Mi either. Qin Xiaolan was still pointing at Hua Mi and cursing, "If you weren't so nosy, who would have gotten someone out of the warm underground second floor?" Obviously, on the second floor below ground, she had food and drink, and she only needed to accompany the man to do that kind of thing, and she could be well fed and warm and survive. Who asked Hua Mi to save her? She didn't ask Hua Mi to save her. Hua Mi was very impatient and turned to go into the tent. As a result, Qin Xiaolan seemed to have found an outlet to vent her emotions, and she madly attacked Hua Mi. Here, the easiest person to bully is Hua Mi, who is pregnant. She stepped forward, pointed at Hua Mi, and scolded, "You just love to ruin other people's lives, you." Without waiting for Qin Xiaolan to finish her scolding, Hua Mi turned around and slapped Qin Xiaolan in the face. Who had little strength to begin with and was wearing very thin clothes, was beaten to the ground. The corners of his mouth were broken. In the tent, Gong Yi looked back and did not intend to stop it.
Qin Xiaolan.
Hua Mi held her waist and took 2 steps forward with her big belly. Qin Xiaolan, lying on the snow, seemed to have just realized that she had been slapped. She raised her head and looked at Hua Mi in surprise. Hua Mi looked down at her and said coldly, "If you want to do this business and find it easier to support yourself, no one will stop you. But you have to look at where this place is. This D city is full of zombies. It's right under your feet. There's no telling how many zombies are partying. You are engaged in the flesh trade and have already reached the top of the zombies. No one asks you to be moral, but at least don't make yourself a zombie and cause trouble for us in the end." Qin Xiaolan, who was lying on the ground, couldn't hear what Hua Mi was saying at all. Even if she heard it, she wouldn't understand it. In her mind and heart, there was only one thing on her mind. Hua Mi hit her, hit her, hit her. She jumped up from the snow and rushed towards Hua Mi, with a look of determination to die with Hua Mi. Just as Qin Xiaolan rushed past Zhong Zimo gave way. Shirt Saixia stepped forward and stood directly in front of Hua Mi, bumping into Qin Xiaolan. The next moment, before Qin Xiaolan could scold her, Hua Mi lifted up the back of her collar. Let go of me. Aw, let go of me." Qin Xiaolan was like a madman, being dragged by Hua Mi all the way in the snow. Everyone was quite surprised. Seeing Hua Mi's big belly, they didn't expect that she was so strong. Even with such a big pregnant belly, she was still able to drag Qin Xiaolan all the way and directly throw her into City D. In the snow, Huami looked at Qin Xiaolan, who was thrown into the soft snow. Do whatever you want. You like to engage in the flesh trade, right? Go ahead and do it. Who has the patience to care about you? After saying that, Huami turned around, glanced at Shirtsaixia, who had climbed up from the snow, and called out, "Let's go collect the supplies. There's an entire building's worth of supplies. It would be a waste not to accept them." When it comes to supplies, Zhong Zimo has something to say. However, he did not go directly to Huami, but walked into the tent and found Gong Yi, who was meeting with Zhou Cheng, and said, "Commander Gong, I hope that the supplies in the management building can be returned to us. They were purchased with the city reserve funds of our city C." Gong Yi raised his head, frowned sharply, and looked at Zhong Zimo. "Get out." They are now holding a meeting in the tent, preparing to blast a layer of ice to release all the zombies inside and kill them. How could anyone just enter the commander's tent? Before Zhong Zimo could say anything more, Zhou Qing stood up and pushed Zhong Zimo out. He looked at Zhong Zimo with a half-smile on his face. "Secretary Zhong, have you not figured out the current situation? You guys should leave quickly. When the zombies are blown out, none of us will be able to take care of you. But that batch of supplies." Zhong Zimo was obsessed with the batch of supplies and tried to persuade Gong Yi to put pressure on Huami to return the supplies to him. But Zhou Qing shook his head. "It's no use looking for us. We all need to rely on Sister Hua for support. Let's go quickly." He drove Zhong Zimo away as if he were driving away a fly. Zhong Zimo clenched his teeth. When Zhong Zimo was kicked out of the tent, Mi Guiyuan came up to him and asked, "How is it? Is there any future for you?" Huang Mao and the others returned to the management building and talked about how Zhang Jifeng was killed by Gong Yi. Disagreements arose within their management. A group of street urchins, following a man called Brother Monkey, silently guarded the management building. Zhong Zimo and Mi Guiyuan discussed it and decided to join Gong Yi. At present, Gong Yi's development prospects are actually much greater than Chen Hu's. Zhong Zimo took a stroll around City D before he realized how dangerous the environment outside was. There was no reason for him to leave Gong Yi, who was so close to him, and instead reorganize his forces outside. So Zhong Zimo reconsidered the situation and persuaded Mi Guiyuan to bring the women on the second floor below to join Gong Yi. Once you gain a foothold beside Gong Yi, your future will be bright. Being able to become Gong Yi's right-hand man will give you many opportunities to rise to prominence in the future. Facing Mi Guiyuan's eager gaze, Zhong Zimo's eyes darkened. Gong Yi is a garrison man, and his personality is different from our management. We still have to take it slow. What this means is that Zhong Zimo is not taken seriously by Gong Yi. Mi Guiyuan pointed to the direction of the gate of City D. "How about we put some effort into Gong Yi's woman? It's just a matter of currying favor with one person. Isn't it quite easy for the administrators? If Gong Yi is unmoved, then I'll start with Huami. There will always be a way for me to stay with Gong Yi and realize my ambitions." However, Zhong Zimo looked down on Huami, and he himself couldn't even figure out where his contempt for this woman came from. He just snorted and said, "She's just a woman. What decisive role can she play? Isn't she just a man's vassal?" According to Mi Guiyuan, some of these women would stay, and the others would be dismissed, allowing them to do whatever they want. Leave those who do good work to the garrison. Mi Guiyuan smiled ambiguously and winked at Zhong Zimo. Those garrisons must remember our kindness. It will be easier for us to find them to do things for us in the future. Zhong Zimo thought about it and nodded. We are all adult men now, there is no need to explain clearly what is going on. As long as he is a man, he will have this need. What's more, the garrisons are all full of vigor and vitality. Due to discipline, they would not say anything on the surface, but the real purpose was to bring women to their mouths. In fact, few men would refuse. Obviously, Mi Guiyuan and Zhong Zimo are well aware of this. Having been in management for a long time, he has done all kinds of things, so there is no need to make a fuss about it. The two of them took the initiative to assume the responsibility of settling and dismissing the woman on the second floor. They also found a few trucks and put the remaining women on the trucks. Seeing that the two of them were finally busy settling the women, Zhou Cheng and Gong Yi didn't say anything else. The first blasting point has been identified, and Li Haifu and other psychics are already fully armed. All those who participated in killing zombies put on protective clothing and left the tent carrying shells. On this side, Huami had already brought Shirt Saixia into the management building. As expected, Qin Xiaolan followed Huami and Shirt Saixia tremblingly and entered the management building. Standing in the dark, dilapidated lobby on the first floor, Shirt Saixia whispered to Huami, "Why doesn't that Qin Xiaolan leave? She finally escaped from the clutches of the devil, but she won't leave?" As Qin Jin's secretary, Shirt Saixia also knows Qin Xiaolan. She knew about the relationship between Qin Xiaolan and Ma Jixuan. "I also know that Qin Xiaolan used to be a very good girl. Even when the end of the world just came and Qin Xiaolan's family was in such a difficult situation, Qin Xiaolan never went out to sell herself. But now, Qin Xiaolan actually walked back to the management building by herself." Huami walked forward step by step with a blank expression. Obviously, she finds it easier to live this way. In fact, according to Xiangqing's current living environment, it is not difficult for survivors to stay alive. Thanks to the efforts of Qin Zhen and a group of people, Xiangqing now has many job opportunities. If you can't find work in the factory, you can do hard labor to clear obstacles. This way you can get a meal. However, this is too hard. How can it be as comfortable as making money just by lying down? Everyone has their own aspirations, and Huami won't judge anything. Shirt Saixia twisted his mouth and looked back. Qin Xiaolan went down to the second floor below ground through the safety passage like a wandering soul. At this moment, the lights above Huami and Shirt Saixia's heads lit up. From the railing on the second floor came the teasing voice of Huang Mao. "Hey, there's a road to heaven, but you don't take it. Instead, you come to us with a big belly. What are you doing here?" Zhong Zimo and Mi Guiyuan have already left with the woman, fulfilling Gong Yi's wish, but the pregnant woman is here again? If we kill them, we'll have to explain to the garrison.
Get out of here now.
Huang Mao was frightened by Zhang Jifeng's death. If it were in the past, he would not let go of a beautiful woman like Huami. Shirt Saixia dragged a baseball bat from somewhere in her hand. She stood in front of Huami and looked up at the second floor. "Ami, stand behind me and I will protect you." Huami, who was following behind Shirt Saixia, nodded seriously. "Okay, it's all up to you." In fact, Shirt Saixia has also practiced it. She had previously gone to the gym to practice boxing for a few months. Huang Mao and the others on the second floor burst into laughter when they saw Shirt Saixia's funny behavior. TSK, you two brought this to my door." In fact, Huang Mao and others also have their own lucky mentality. They felt that Gong Yi, the garrison commander, definitely didn't care about Huami and Shirt Saixia. After all, at a time like this, it's quite generous of you to let these two women wander around outside. As he spoke, Huang Mao walked down the stairs to the hall, and in the bright light, he made an obscene gesture towards Shirt Saixia. There was another burst of laughter from the second floor. I don't know how many street urchins are left here, but judging from the laughter, there should be quite a lot of them. Shirt Saixia calmed down and said to Huang Mao, "We are here to take over the supplies in your building. If you know what's best for you, just hand them over and don't force us to do anything." The yellow-haired man walked forward nonchalantly and raised his hand to touch Shirt Saixia's face. "Ha ha ha, look at what you're saying. If you have the ability, come and collect it. Come and collect it." He stretched out his hand, but before he could touch Shirt Saixia hit him on the hand with a stick. Huang Mao was in so much pain that he leaned over, hugged his arms, yelled, and punched Shirt Saixia in the face. "You're looking for death." Bang, a gunshot was heard. Huami, who was standing behind Shirt Saixia, raised the AK-47 in her hand and shot the yellow-haired man. The yellow-haired man's body was smashed against the wall behind him due to the impact of the bullet, rolled directly to the ground.
Dead.
The rampant laughter on the second floor paused for a moment. Someone yelled, "Monkey, this witch has a gun." She had a gun in her hand. Guns and ammunition were relatively scarce resources for these street urchins. At the beginning, Chun Hu got a few weapons from the armory, but his power was weakened by Gong Yi all the way. A batch of weapons were lost in the red light district, and when Brother Fan died, another batch of weapons were lost. The weapons that can be allocated to Monkey Brother and Zhang Jifeng are very, very few. Monkey Brother on the second floor was holding a gun and shot Huami. Although Chun, who has very few weapons, I'm sorry, but Brother Monkey was lucky enough to be allocated one. Huami held down Shirt Saishia's head with one hand, forcing her to dodge the bullets, and raised a PKM with the other hand. Wasn't it an AK-47? When did you switch to PKM? Before anyone had time to think, Huami raised the PKM and fired in a circle at the second floor. Don't cherish bullets at all. She didn't even bother to look at who was on the second floor. She just swung her gun and turned around. Shirt Saishia covered his ears with his hands, raised his head, and saw the same scene above him as in Hong Kong movies. Those street scoundrels didn't have time to run away, and those who were watching the excitement at the second floor railing were sprayed with bullets. I met a lunatic. Someone on the second floor was shouting, and someone was running upstairs in a hurry. There were also some people armed with weapons who came down from the safe passage and tried to launch a sneak attack on Huami. If she could allow their sneak attack to succeed, Huami would no longer be Huami. As this group of people rushed out of the safe passage, Huami took out the Gatling gun and started to fire a burst of weapons. Anyone who rushed out was shot into a sieve. So when did her PKM turn into a Gatling gun? Anyone who witnessed this scene would not be able to understand it. The entire first and second floors were filled with wailing. So many people died that no one dared to run into Huami's gun. If there are still people getting hit, it means that not enough people have died. Huami looked at the safe passage where the bodies had piled up like a small mountain and said to Shirt Saishia, who was standing there stupidly with a baseball bat, "Go search the supplies on the first floor." After sending the pale-faced Shirt Saishia away, Huami stepped forward, kicked the corpse piled on the stairs, and threw it into her medium-sized recycling bin. Unlock the medium-sized recycling station level 2, get 2 sweeping robots, 2 trash cans, and 2 trash bins. When a lucky draw, X1 remaining draws X16, her medium-sized recycling station got an upgrade. Huami walked all the way to the safe stairs and recovered the body of the street urchin on the first floor. Because she was stuck at the point of factory upgrade, her medium-sized recycling station would be upgraded by 1 level every time she recycled a few corpses. Finally, when she had collected all the bodies at the stairs, her medium-sized garbage recycling station had been upgraded to medium-sized garbage recycling station level 10. Congratulations! You have reached the maximum level of the medium-sized garbage recycling station. Unlock high-level garbage recycling station level 1. Get sweeping robot X1, trash can X1, trash box X1, garbage truck X1. When a lucky draw X1 remaining lucky draws X25. Huami took a careful look, then turned around and walked out of the management building. In the snow and wind, she released all the sweeping robots in her hands. These sweeping robots will reach into every corner day and night to recycle garbage for Huami. Then, Huami looked at the garbage truck. She also released the garbage truck. This garbage truck is like a robot, without any human cockpit. It looks like a forklift. When it is placed on the ground, it will automatically pick up and shovel garbage. The amount of garbage it recycles is much greater than that of a sweeping robot. I watched the garbage truck slowly drive away and finally disappear in the wind and snow. Huami stood at the door of the management building for a while, then turned around and went back to collect the supplies. There are quite a few street urchins on the second floor and above. When Zhong Zimo and Mi Guiyuan were about to come and join Gong Yi, many street urchins actually also had some hope. They feel that the world is just like this. It's just a matter of changing the master. Originally, they were supporting Zhang Jifeng and Chun Hu, so does Gong Yi not need anyone to support him? In this extreme environment, everyone knows that the more people you have around you and the greater your power, the better you can survive. Live a good and nourishing life. So even though Zhong Zimo and Mi Guiyuan took the women away, all the remaining street urchins and the survivors who had joined the D City Management class one after another did not leave. When Huami rushed to the second floor, there were a few street thugs who were planning to attack her from the dark. Just a pregnant woman. Without her gun, she is nothing. Just a pregnant woman, even if you avoid the gun in her hand, she can still beat up the street thugs in a building. Hwami's current strength is not something that a few ordinary men can deal with. Although she had a big belly, her movements were surprisingly agile and light. In a short while, she had killed all the gangsters on the second floor and stored all the supplies in the entire building into her level 30 warehouse No. 3. Soon, Hwami collected supplies and killed people all the way upstairs, and her warehouse was burst again and again. Unlock storage level 35, space 30 by 3. When a lucky draw X1 remaining lucky draw X30 the deeper into the apocalypse, the faster Hwami's apocalypse supermarket system will upgrade. When order is completely lost and only the strong are respected, upgrading seems to become a very simple thing. Soon, Hwami had cleaned up all the supplies in the entire management building, except for the top floor. In fact, only a small part of the supplies in this building were purchased by Li Haifu and his team from Xiongqing. Most of the supplies were obtained by street urchins through various means of stealing, kidnapping, and robbery. When Hwami reached the top floor, a small group of street thugs had already gathered there. They seemed to know how powerful Hwami was and held Qin Xiaolan hostage. Pregnant woman, don't come over here. If you come over here again, I will kill this woman. The top floor is filled with supplies. There are more than 30 floors, and each floor is packed with supplies. Hwami held the bloody machete in her hand and looked at the sky, which was already bright. Gong Yi and his team have already blasted open the ice at the blasting point. Standing here, they can hear the zombies' roars from afar. No, don't come over here, Hwami. Don't come over here. Qin Xiaolan was like crazy, yelling at Hwami, "You have killed my brother.
You have destroyed our whole family. Please don't hurt me again."
Don't hurt me, monkey brother, who was holding Qin Xiaolan hostage, stopped and looked at Hwami with excitement on his face. He hurriedly urged Qin Xiaolan, yes, 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 just shout like that, tell her not to come over. Shout quickly, Qin Xiaolan cried and scolded Hwami even harder. She was afraid that if Hwami took another step forward, monkey brother would really cut her throat with a knife. Qin Xiaolan was extremely scared. Hwami, who had been busy all night, reached out and pulled a chair over. She sat on the chair, holding her belly. If you're tired, take a break. Pregnant women can't afford to get hurt. I also heard Qin Xiaolan talking about being harmed by Hwami. Hwami couldn't help but laugh. While she was resting, she asked, "Did I ask you to return to this building? Could it be that Qin Xiaolan herself doesn't want to work too hard and thinks that doing the flesh trade is easier? So that's why you ran back to the management building? What's Guan Hwami's business?" Qin Xiaolan opened her mouth. Her eyes were dry and cloudy, and she suddenly said excitedly, "If it weren't for you, my brother wouldn't have died." "You killed my brother, right?" Hwami squinted at Qin Xiaolan. "What do you think is the point of you saying this at this time?" So, what if Hwami killed Qin Xiaolan? Can Qin Xiaolan take revenge, or what? Now Qin Xiaolan is full of death. She has no ability to take revenge at all. Just repeating it over and over again. "You owe me, Hwami, you owe me. You can't come over. If you come over, I will die." A few months ago, when she went to see Fong Xian, she was still a young girl with a face full of collagen. But now, Qin Xiaolan just wants to live. Monkey brother hid behind her, fearing that he would be hit by Hwami's knife. He used her as a shield, but she had no hatred towards Monkey King. The only one who felt hatred was Hwami. Qin Xiaolan said to Hwami with a sad face, "Please let us go. You killed my brother. You owe my brother a life. Now you need to give it back to me." Monkey brother was very happy. He hid behind Qin Xiaolan and encouraged her. Yes, that's right. Let her return your brother's life and let us go." Qin Xiaolan, who was being held hostage with hatred on her face.
Hwami smiled.
"I owe your brother a life? You don't feel guilty saying that? What kind of world is this? If your brother doesn't harm others first, how could someone deliberately harm him? Don't think that the whole world owes your family something. We are not that double standard. Only your family is allowed to harm others, and others are not allowed to retaliate against you. Besides, do you think you can survive if you go outside?" She nodded and made way for them. Okay, go ahead and take a look outside. Maybe you will think it's better to die in my hands. Huami was serious about letting Qin Xiaolan and Monkey Brother go. I'm afraid the situation outside City D is not very good now. It just so happened that Huami was tired of killing people, so she decided to do a good deed and let Monkey Brother and Qin Xiaolan go. Brother Monkey held Qin Xiaolan hostage and walked out step by step. The rest of the street urchins need to follow. Huami raised her knife and blocked their steps. She said coldly, "The rest of you can't leave. If too many of you leave, it will only add to the burden on Commander Gong and the others." The roars of zombies rang out, and judging from the sounds, there were really a lot of zombies outside. If we really let the street urchins wander around, they will turn into zombies, and we will have to kill them with great effort. Why bother? It would be better to just kill these street urchins and throw their bodies directly into a high-end garbage recycling station. Those street urchins who were about to leave looked at each other, and then looked at Monkey King. Brother Monkey had already run downstairs holding Qin Xiaolan hostage.
He threw them away.
Suddenly, a street rushed towards Huami, raising the knife in his hand. Die, witch, go to Hades, die, die. No one saw how Huami took out the knife. It was only after the street who attacked Huami died that everyone realized what was going on. It was Huami who killed him. The screams of misery rang out from the top floor, one after another, and finally a few street urchins died at the hands of Huami. When Shirt Saixia climbed up from downstairs panting, the top floor was already clean. Apart from the bloodstains on the ground, there was no corpse or box of supplies. Ami, Qin Xiaolan, and Monkey have already run to the bottom of the management building. Shirt Saixia scratched his head, not knowing what to say. She climbed up from the first floor, and every floor was clean. If there weren't bright red bloodstains on the cold ground, Shirt Saixia would have thought this was an empty building. Huami turned back slightly and said to Shirt Saixia, "Let's go down and take a look."
Shikixia. Ah?
Climb down again? What should she do if her legs are shaking? She just climbed up 30 floors with great effort, and now she has to climb down again? But Huami did not give her a chance to refuse. You need to exercise more. No matter how well you study, if you are weak, you will not live long. If you practice more, you might become a superpower. Huami dragged Shirt Saixia's hand and went downstairs one floor at a time. Her movements were so light and agile that she didn't look like a pregnant woman at all. By the time Huami, pregnant with a 6-month-old belly, dragged Shirt Saixia to the top 10 floors. Monkey Brother, holding Qin Xiaolan, had just reached the door of the hall. He grabbed Qin Xiaolan's hair, and the more he thought about it, the more dissatisfied he became. He took out his anger on Qin Xiaolan. "I only heard Monkey Brother scolding. Why didn't your brother kill that witch Huami back then? It's good now. Stay and cause trouble to us." He didn't know whether Qin Xiren really died at Huami's hands. In fact, Qin Xiaolan didn't know either. But they just said this, wanting to use this incident to morally blackmail Huami. Hearing Monkey Brother's complaints, Qin Xiaolan couldn't help but sobbed. "I also heard Monkey Brother say, I heard that Zhong Zimo and his men have settled down with Gong Yi, so we're going to go and join Gong Yi as well." As he spoke, he looked Qin Xiaolan up and down, his eyes full of disdain. "You said you used to be pretty and you were popular among men for a while. How come you are so ugly now?" He remembered that when Qin Xiaolan first came into his hands, her face was full of collagen. At that time, all the men under Zhang Jifeng liked to support Qin Xiaolan. If Qin Xiaolan was still as pretty as before, Brother Monkey could do her a favor and give her to Gong Yi or Zhou Cheng. Now Monkey Brother's eyes are rolling around. He may have to look for a new woman to please Gong Yi or Zhou Cheng. Looking at Qin Xiaolan again, she lowered her head, crying timidly, and dared not cry too loudly for fear of upsetting Monkey Brother. Then beat her up again. Yes, in fact, Qin Xiaolan doesn't remember what she looked like at the beginning. Isn't she the one who was beaten up by Monkey Brother? Qin Xiaolan, who didn't dare to resist, followed Monkey Brother and opened the door to the first-floor hall. Just as the two were about to go out, they saw a man staggering towards them. The man's face was covered with ulcers, and his skin was stiff, white and blistered, as if it had been blistered. As if it noticed that Monkey King had opened the door, it let out a wild roar. Monkey Brother and Qin Xiaolan were stunned and screamed at the same time. "Close the door." Huami, who was walking downstairs, vaguely heard the sounds of ghosts howling in the hall on the first floor. "It's Monkey Brother and Qin Xiaolan." Huami immediately loosened up Saixia, whose legs were weak and on the verge of death from exhaustion, and went to the railing on the 10th floor and looked down. It means that Monkey Brother, who was about to leave, and Qin Xiaolan are back. The two men had been shocked outside and had now closed the doors and windows of the lobby on the first floor and were sitting in the lobby, at a loss. Seeing Huami walking down the stairs slowly, Monkey Brother dragged Qin Xiaolan up again and looked at Huami with a vigilant look. "Don't come over here, or I'll kill her." He took the knife again and put it across Qin Xiaolan's neck with a ferocious look on his face. Huami didn't even look at Monkey Brother and directly opened the door to the hall. "Don't open the door, there are monsters outside." Monkey Brother became anxious and pounced on Huami from behind. He held the knife in his hand and stabbed at Huami's back. Saixia screamed in fear. "Ami." Huami, who was standing by the door, fired a shot with her backhand as if she had eyes behind her. Knocked Monkey Brother's body to the ground. Saixia rushed out and hit the zombie that rushed into the hall door with a baseball bat. She became more and more ferocious, and she just knocked the zombie's head off. Then, Saixia stood there blankly, raised his fingers, and pushed up the glasses on his nose. There was applause behind her. Huami, who was 6 months pregnant, stood behind Saixia and clapped her hands. "Not bad, not bad, Xia, keep going, you have great potential." Huami searched around again and found Qin Xiaolan had already run into the basement. Outside the hall, a few more zombies wandered over. On the street not far away, people with special powers like Li Haifu were twisting the zombies' heads. No wonder Monkey Brother and Qin Xiaolan were so scared. The street in front of the D City Management Building was full of zombies in groups of 3 or 2. They all heard the noise and came towards the management building. It seems that Li Haifu and his team are not yet proficient in their work and are not very fast in killing the zombies. Huami turned around and collected Monkey Brother's body, then looked at Saixia. The little girl put on protective clothing, picked up a baseball bat, and was about to rush out to kill the zombies. Huami reached out, lifted up Saixia's collar, and stuffed an AK-47 into his hand. "Take this and up the zombie's head." Without waiting for Saixia to speak, Huami, holding the AK-47 in her hand, also joined the ranks of shooting zombies in the head. Not far away, Li Haifu, who was hurriedly twisting the zombie's head, saw this and approached Huami while twisting the zombie's head off. "Sister Hua, your belly is so big, so don't work too hard. Why don't you go to the management hall and take a rest?" In the city of D, where snowflakes are floating everywhere, there would be dozens of sweeping robots and a garbage truck constantly cleaning the snow from the ground. I guess this road has been covered by heavy snow a long time ago. Huami's belly looks as big as that of other babies who are 8 or 9 months pregnant. It made Li Haifu terrified. I was afraid that she would lose her balance and hit her stomach in the snow. Huami stood on the long street covered with thick snow, shaking her head.
"I'm fine.
I'm not very tired. Do you want anything to eat or drink? How about I grill some skewers for you?" As he was speaking, another explosion was heard. Not far away, the zombies' roars became louder. It seems that Gong Yi and Zhou Cheng have blew up another explosion point, and the zombies inside have come out. Li Haifu hadn't reacted to what Huami said. "I saw the garbage truck scoop up the zombie's body and head on the ground and throw them into the garbage truck bucket at the back. No one knows who is driving this garbage truck." When he turned around to look at Huami again, Huami was already bulging with belly, and she shot another zombie in the head off. She glanced at Li Haifu and said, "I'm going to grill some skewers for you now." After Li Haifu twisted off a few zombies' heads, he looked back and saw Huami already standing on the roadside, setting up a barbecue grill. Li Haifu was a little surprised. When was this barbecue rack placed here? However, several zombies have already appeared on the streets, and it seems that the powerful people in the distance are also unskilled in their work. Li Haifu turned around and killed those zombies. Wait until he turns around to look at Huami again. Huami was holding an AK-47 in one hand and holding a big umbrella with the other. The big umbrella blocked the snowflakes, and the charcoal fire in the barbecue grill had begun to burn. Li Haifu killed a few zombies again and came back to see Huami. Next to the barbecue stove, there were brushes, oil, cumin, and chili powder, as well as a large bag of bones and meat, mutton, coriander, cabbage, chili peppers, and sweet potato peels. Huami was busy, with a few zombies lying at her feet, whose heads were shot by her. This scene made Li Haifu feel inexplicably harmonious. When Li Haifu came back, the meat on the barbecue grill was already emitting fragrance. The cumin roasting over charcoal fire adds a delightful scent of fireworks to the frozen city. Li Haifu walked into the big umbrella hesitantly and looked around. Huami was in the distance, shooting zombies in the head with a gun. Shirt Saixia didn't know where he went to fight the zombies. All the zombie corpses on the ground were shoveled into the garbage truck. The environment is quite clean. Li Haifu picked up a skewer of roasted meat and bones and looked at the cumin and chili powder on it. He took a tentative bite. It's so delicious. For people in the apocalypse, happiness comes so easily. Is there anything happier than killing zombies and grilling some skewers? Li Haifu finished the meal with a full sense of happiness and did not forget to grill a few more skewers, waiting for other psychics to come over so that they could also eat the grilled skewers. They managed to turn such a bloody activity as killing zombies into something resembling an outing. Just as Gong Yi and his men continued to up the blasting points and release the zombies one by one. Mi Guiyuan and Zhong Zimo also discovered that zombies had indeed appeared in City D. Mi Guiyuan looked flustered and found Zhong Zimo. What should we do now? I didn't expect there would be such a thing as zombies. Zhong Zimo sat in the car, looking out the window with an unpredictable look on his face. I still have to follow Gong Yi closely. Do you have anything to eat? After Gong Yi left, everyone else entered City D, including Shirt Saixia and Huami. They did not leave any edible supplies for Mi Guiyuan, Zhong Zimo, and others. When they came out of the management building, Mi Guiyuan and Zhong Zimo each took some food. But in this situation, this amount of food cannot last long. And they both have a lot of women to support. If I had known this would happen, I would have lived my life the same way as before without any changes. Mi Guiyuan was a little annoyed and a little confused. They used to stay in the management building and didn't have to do anything. Even though it was so cold outside, they didn't have to go out and starve or freeze. Life is very good. Why dig them out of the administration building? I am increasingly confused. Before this, Mi Guiyuan could still receive messages from Monkey Brother saying that Huami entered the management building with a gun. At that time, although Mi Guiyuan had some disagreements with Monkey Brother, they had not yet fallen out and could go back to manage the building at any time. But now that Monkey Brother's information has been cut off, he is probably in great danger. Mi Guiyuan couldn't help but feel a little resentful towards Huami. His eyes were gloomy, and he asked Zhong Zimo beside him, "You said a woman. She is fine. She doesn't stay in Xiangqing, and she doesn't stay at home as a palace wife. Why is she running around everywhere?" If it weren't for Huami, Monkey Brother in the management building probably wouldn't have died. Zhong Zimo raised his hand and patted Mi Guiyuan on the shoulder. When I raised my eyes, I saw Gong Yi walking out of the City D, where the snow was blowing. He hurriedly signaled to Mi Guiyuan, and the two got out of the car and walked towards Gong Yi. "Commander Gong." Zhong Zimo looked serious and handled the matter impartially. "How can I help you?" Gong Yi went to the city entrance and took a walk to see if there were any zombies on the highway. He frowned and looked at Zhong Zimo. "Why haven't you two taken the woman away yet?" Although some women had left, there were still quite a few women staying in the cars at the city entrance. "If we don't leave now, our car will be buried in the snow soon." Shirt Saixia found Huami mysteriously. She kicked the snow off her feet and whispered to Huami, "Ami, did you know that Zhong Zimo and the others haven't left yet?" Huami does not have the mental strength like Gong Yi. She is in City D and has no idea what is happening outside. Seeing Shirt Saixia's mysterious look, she asked, "What's wrong? Why don't Zhong Zimo and the others leave yet?" Shirt Saixia said, They left a group of women behind, waiting at the entrance of City D. What do you think is the reason? Seeing Hua Mi's bewildered expression, Shirt Saixia said angrily, of course it's because he wants to use these women to please Commander Gong.
Oh.
Hua Mi nodded, with no expression on her face. Shirt Saixia said hurriedly, Ami, why aren't you anxious at all? I know Zhong Zimo's methods. Those men are essentially no different from street urchins, Ami. If a man has a social status, will he play more elegantly? Not really. There is no difference. They all think with their lower body. Seeing that Hua Mi still had no reaction, Shirt Saixia decided to make his words more clear. Look at the old Ma Yongchun. He was such a serious man. He seemed to be good to Miss Qin, right? But no one can guarantee that Ma Yongchun doesn't have a woman outside. Ami, all men have women outside, all of them. As far as Shirt Saixia knew, Zhong Zimo would often arrange this kind of entertainment activities for the senior management who came to visit him. Really, it's so common. For Zhong Zimo, it's just a piece of cake. Those poor, innocent women were previously in the hands of Zhang Jifeng, and now they are in the hands of Zhong Zimo. In fact, there is no difference. They usually use women to strengthen the friendship between men. Whether it is a business occasion or serious entertainment, women's company is indispensable. Shirt Saixia continued to give Hua Mi a vaccination. Look, your belly is so big now. It's inconvenient for you to do anything with your husband. Your husband will definitely find a woman outside. Even if he doesn't look for it, he will think about it mentally. Ami, Zhong Zimo is a man who is not so easy to deal with. You need to be more open-minded. Seeing Shirt Saixia's sympathetic look, Hua Mi raised her hand and patted Shirt Saixia on the shoulder. Just fight the zombies. Ignore them. Anyway, she didn't like Gong Yi very much. Hua Mi didn't feel anything at all. Anyway, she already has a child, so does it matter whether Gong Yi plays outside or not? Aside from feeling a little nauseous inside, Hua Mi didn't have any emotions. By night, the blasting work was finally over. After cleaning up City D, everyone returned to the entrance of City D under the cover of darkness. Chao Feng, Tang Yu, Fang Yuqi, and Lu Xingyuan each led a small team and arrived at the entrance of City D. Gong Yi is holding a meeting for them. These garrisons are all elites in his hands. This time, the zombies in City D are frozen, so the number of zombies can be controlled appropriately. To achieve the effect of giving the garrison troops training, so Gong Yi called all the elites under his command over. Starting tomorrow, all these garrison elites will be sent out to fight the zombies. Hua Mi and Shirt Saixia returned to the city gate and saw Gong Yi in the tent, holding a meeting with the garrison elites. Shirt Saixia winked at Hua Mi, asking her to look at several cars that were buried in the snow in the distance. Those beautiful women are in those cars. Hua Mi glanced at him expressionlessly and returned to the nanny car. The night gradually deepened. In the small bathroom of the nanny car, Hua Mi looked at her huge belly in the mirror. I thought very seriously about the possibility of killing the father and keeping the son. At this time, the door of the nanny car was opened, and the wind and snow poured into the car. Gong Yi got in the car, turned around, and quickly closed the door. He looked at Hua Mi, who walked out clumsily from the small bathroom and warmed his hands on the smokeless wood stove. Gong Yi asked, "You went into D City today? It's been 6 months. Can't you go back to Xiang City?" Hua Mi ignored him with a straight face. Dirty man, not worth a word from her. Seeing that Hua Mi didn't say anything, Gong Yi came over again and sat on the edge of Hua Mi's chair. "What's wrong? Who offended you?" As he spoke, he reached out his hand, touched Hua Mi's big belly, and sighed. "You said that this City D is full of zombies. It will take a few days to kill them all. Why don't you go back? Isn't it almost time for your prenatal checkup? I'll feel more at ease if you go back." Hua Mi pushed Gong Yi, opened his hand, and asked him, "Where's our marriage certificate?" Sure enough, Gong Yi was foresight. After he dragged Hua Mi to get married, he didn't ask for anything and only took the marriage certificate from Hua Mi. Now Hua Mi wants to tear up these 2 marriage certificates. She wanted to hide the fact that she and Gong Yi were married. "I put it away."
What? Do you want to see it?
Gradually, Gong Yi realized that something was wrong. Based on his man's intuition, he felt that his marriage to his wife might, probably was in crisis. As expected, Hwami sneered and slapped Gong Yi. "Hand it over." Gong Yi immediately stood up and walked to the bedside. "What do you want this for? Let's talk it over. Don't use force." He is afraid of her. Fear of that. Because if you fight in such a small place, you might accidentally hit your stomach. Gong Yi's face turns pale just thinking about it. You have to go along with it and not stimulate the pregnant woman's emotions. Seeing Hwami striding over, Gong Yi simply lay down on the bed. "You fight, then you can rest after the fight." Yes, in order not to irritate Hwami, Gong Yi lay down and let her hit him. No matter what has offended this ancestor, can't we just let her beat her up to vent her anger? Hwami was originally very cruel and wanted to force the marriage certificate out of Gong Yi's hand and tear it into pieces. When she saw Gong Yi lying flat, she couldn't help but burst out laughing. Gong Yi, who was lying on the bed, tilted his head to glance at her, then immediately sat up and asked with sparkling eyes, "You're smiling again, so you're not angry anymore?" Hwami's face turned serious. She grabbed a feather duster next to her and pointed it at Gong Yi. "Don't be so playful with me. What were you doing outside?" Gong Yi, who had already sat up, immediately lay down flat on his back, crossed his hands on his chest, frowned and recalled, "We went a blast before dawn and killed zombies with Zhou Chung for a whole day. I am now more and more skilled in killing zombies, and I can even take crystal cores from a distance." The crystal core in the zombie's brain might be just right for Li Haifu and his team. But there was absolutely no way to satisfy Gong Yi. Even Lu Xingyuan couldn't satisfy him. As he spoke, Gong Yi, who was lying on the bed, took out a handful of crystal cores from the pocket of his garrison combat uniform. He handed the crystal core to Hwami. "These are of no use to me. Why don't you just give them to me?" The attitude is well-behaved, and the posture is submissive. He doesn't look like a commander who controls garrisons in several cities at all. What is it like? It's like a husband who is busy with work and has no time to accompany his wife, so he hands over his pocket money as soon as he gets home. Hwami lowered her eyes and looked at the crystal core in Gong Yi's hand. My mind suddenly started to wander. The sparkling crystal core in Gong Yi's hand looked like a handful of pomegranate seed-sized gems. Gong Yi had a lot of such crystal cores in his pockets, and they were all full. Hwami came to his senses, turned around to find a net bag, and asked Gong Yi to take out all the crystal cores from his body and put them in the net bag. She couldn't help but ask curiously, what is the difference between the energy from these crystal cores and the energy from the energy condensation beads when absorbed into the body? It seemed that Hwami's anger had subsided a little. Gong Yi smiled and sat on the bed, patting the empty bed beside him. "Come here, I'll tell you. Hey, don't stand there. You're tired." After Hwami came over and sat down, Gong Yi massaged her shoulders and said carefully, "There is still a slight difference. I feel that the crystal core has more impurities, and the energy is not as pure as the energy condensation bead. Are your feet starting to swell? Let me give you a massage." Originally, the crystal cores in the zombies' brains were not enough for Gong Yi to use, and there were still many impurities after they were absorbed into his body. The taste is like eating snails, with sand inside. If the psychic absorbs too much, he will feel unwell. Hwami let Gong Yi massage her legs and thought for a moment. In fact, many of the people with superpowers in the previous life were big and strong, had bad skin, lumps on their bodies, and their tempers were very bad day by day. Even among female psychics, there are very few who are pretty and beautiful. Many analyses say that if the crystal cores in zombies and mutated plants and animals are absorbed, people will become very violent. Some people with special abilities who absorb crystal cores for a long time may even be in danger of losing their sanity. So Hwami had already known that there were impurities in this crystal core. She just didn't expect that her energy droplets and energy beads were purer than the crystal core. "Then have your garrisons hand over all the crystal cores they have obtained to me and exchange them for energy condensation beads from me." Hwami half lay down, enjoying Gong Yi's service. Crystal cores are actually useful and can be used as currency in the future. She is now hoarding more crystal cores so that she can use them for big things in the future. After a while, Huami suddenly remembered that she had to tear up the marriage certificate. So she opened her eyes, and just as her face turned serious, Gong Yi suddenly leaned over and kissed her on the lips. Huami was stunned for a moment, and all her anger turned into astonishment. Gong Yi smiled and lay down beside Huami. He lay on the outside of the small bed and squeezed Huami. "You sleep inside. I'm afraid you'll turn over and fall off the bed at night." Huami couldn't help but move closer to the bed. She saw Gong Yi turned off the lights, and the environment in the warm nanny car suddenly became dim. After a while, Huami turned her head and looked at the sharp lines on Gong Yi's face in the darkness. "I heard that Zhong Zimo prepared several cars of women for you?" Gong Yi closed his eyes and touched Huami's belly with one hand. "I asked him to take those women away. We won't deal with those things during our garrison. If you have the need, just find a girlfriend and have a good relationship with her." "I don't have a girlfriend, so I hide away and do it secretly." "What time is it now? Why are you still doing this?" At this critical moment for the survivors, who has the mind to play with women? So Gong Yi rejected Zhong Zimo's advances at the first time. Huami didn't say anything, as if she was examining the credibility of Gong Yi's words. Gong Yi also said, "Zhong Zimo is too cunning. He is not someone you can trust with your back." Maybe Zhong Zimo's approach works well among the management level. But to Gong Yi, this approach is very offensive. From the very beginning, Gong Yi's route to power was to get things done in a down-to-earth manner. Not only did he dislike Zhong Zimo's approach, he also despised it in his heart. At this critical moment of life and death, Zhong Zimo will definitely not be able to live up to the trust of the garrison. After hearing what Gong Yi said, Huami felt relieved. As long as he knew what was going on, it would be fine. However, the next morning, Gong Yi took the garrison elites to work. Huami saw that Zhong Zimo and Mi Guiyuan did not leave. They also purchased some supplies from Xiangqing, planning to stay at the gate of D City for a long time. Seeing Huami getting off the nanny car, Mi Guiyuan smiled and greeted Huami. "Mrs. Gong, you're up." Huami nodded, and seeing that Zhong Zimo was talking to Shirtsaixia, she walked up to find Shirtsaixia. However, Mi Guiyuan stretched out his hand to stop him. Huami raised her face and looked at Mi Guiyuan expressionlessly. He still had a smile on his face and asked very considerately, "It's quite chaotic in D City right now. Isn't Madame Gong going back to Xiang City?" Huami held her waist with one hand and protected her big belly with the other hand and tilted her head slightly. "No, I haven't killed all the zombies in D City yet, so I won't go back for now." She felt that Mi Guiyuan had said a little too much, so she raised her foot to bypass Mi Guiyuan and continue walking forward. Unexpectedly, Mi Guiyuan moved his feet and stopped Huami again. "I said, Madame Gong's belly is quite big. I heard that she is pregnant with twins. The environment outside is so bad. Madame Gong should not take risks outside." The strength and persuasion in these words made Huami finally look at this man straight in the eye. She asked, "What do you want to say?" Mi Guiyuan was not polite. "What I want to say is that this is a man's battlefield after all. Mrs. Gong is a pregnant woman, so she should go back to the ivory tower as soon as possible. Anyway, Commander Gong will be less of a burden." Perhaps many people would say that Huami was so foresight that he stockpiled so much supplies at the beginning of the disaster. But Huami is a woman after all, and if she stays here, Gong Yi will not be able to let her go. Gong Yi would not even participate in entertainment among men. Therefore, Mi Guiyuan's intention was to advise Huami to go back to Xiangqing as soon as possible and stop hanging out with men all day. Seeing Huami's uncertain expression, Mi Guiyuan continued, "Seeing the zombies appear, isn't Madame Gong afraid? For the sake of the baby in her belly, Madame Gong shouldn't be so irresponsible." Looking at Mi Guiyuan, Huami finally understood why this man stopped her this morning. She sneered, "Who are you to tell me this? I'm blocking your way up, right? Come, take a look." She pointed at the entrance to City D, behind Mi Guiyuan. A snowy city. The entrance is a long road covered with thick snow. On this long road, dozens of sweeping robots are working non-stop. Huami said, "You know what happened here without me telling you. Isn't it said that men work outside and women work inside? Mi Guiyuan, can you please go outside and let me see the demeanor of your men? Men often use children and marriage to kidnap women. Once a woman shows some strength, men will use all kinds of standards to criticize her for being heresy. But why would the person who said this be from an unrelated American country? Gong Yi didn't use these to kidnap Huami's serious husband Gong Yi, although he also does not approve of Huami staying in City D. He wants Huami to go back because he is concerned about her health. Huami wanted to stay, and Gong Yi didn't insist on sending her back. Instead, it was an American Yuan who ran up to Huami and jumped around. He also told Huami all these nonsense. He was disliking Huami. He thought Huami was an eyesore here. This is hilarious. Huami raised her eyebrows and looked at Mi Guiyuan, continuing to encourage him. Go ahead, kill a zombie. Take care of the outside. If a man like you can take on the responsibility of killing zombies, there won't be a need for a pregnant woman like me to work so hard to kill zombies with a big belly. Mi Guiyuan's expression turned very ugly, and he said coldly, I'm doing this for your own good. You don't have to be so sarcastic. Whether it's for my own good or not, you know it yourself. Huami walked around Mi Guiyuan expressionlessly and continued to walk forward 2 steps. She stopped and looked back at Mi Guiyuan. Survival in this environment has become very difficult. Survival in the apocalypse is particularly difficult. Who would leave the important matters of the base to something for entertainment? Don't let the path of human beings become narrower and narrower. Huami's voice faded away. Mi Guiyuan's face was gloomy as he watched Huami gradually walk away. He clenched his lowered fingers into a fist. Very good, this woman Huami is really as annoying as Zhong Zimo said. This is a woman who completely doesn't understand the rules of the game between men. Such untactful women usually like to be pretentious and always care about some of the social engagements that men have to engage in. Mi Guiyuan just watched how Huami ruined Gong Yi's friendship and put herself on the path of being a shrew. In the distance, Shirt Saixia saw that Huami's face was not good. She turned around and came to find Huami with an AK-47 on her back. But his arm was held by Zhong Zimo. Kaixia, you must remember what I told you. This place is in chaos. Remember to persuade Huami to go back to Xiangqing. Yesterday, Zhong Zimo wanted to send a few women to Gong Yi so that Gong Yi could relax after killing zombies for a day. As a result, Gong Yi didn't even look at Zhong Zimo and got into the nanny car directly. Huami was in the nanny car. Before dawn today, Chao Feng found Zhong Zimo and Mi Guiyuan and asked them to send those women away quickly. The zombie killing work in City D has begun, and the garrison elites are gearing up. This place is really not suitable for outsiders to stay. No normal survivor would stay in such a place. For this reason, Chao Feng also made a harsh statement that once the zombies came out of City D, no one would hesitate to rescue Zhong Zimo and the others. But Zhong Zimo and Mi Guiyuan did not want to give up such an opportunity to move up. After they discussed it, they felt that the biggest problem was not the threat from zombies. The biggest problem still lies with Huami. Gong Yi couldn't let go because Huami was here. If Huami left, Gong Yi would have no scruples and would naturally accept another woman. Once Gong Yi took the lead, the rest of the garrison would naturally come to have fun with women. So, why is Huami here? She is a woman and a pregnant woman. Why doesn't she just stay in Xiangqing like Qingjin? Shirt Saixia looked at Zhong Zimo, feeling cold in his heart. Captain Gong has no say in Ami's affairs. Why are you meddling in other people's business? Really, maybe Shirt Saixia is getting stronger and stronger. She followed Huami, running around here and there all day long. She had seen gunfights, murders, and zombies. Now she was pretty good at fighting zombies. The broader her horizons, the more she looked down upon Zhong Zimo. Before he knew it, Shirt Saixia had reached a higher place than Zhong Zimo. She didn't think at all that Huami was a burden to Gong Yi. I don't feel it at all. Zhong Zimo looked at Shirt Saixia carefully, his brows furrowed even deeper. I'm not saying anything, Kaixia. Don't you think your posture following behind Huami is getting uglier and uglier? You weren't like this before. Although you are not capable, you are helping Qingjin. At least you are doing a decent job. But look at yourself now, what are you doing? Are you Huami's or her bodyguard? The zombies are coming. What can you do? Zhong Zimo felt that Shirt Saixia's current image with a gun on his back was very ugly. She was a top student in the law department, but now she was carrying a gun and shooting zombies? Excuse me? Who can tell Zhong Zimo what Shirt Saixia is doing now? She has studied for so many years. Has she learned nothing? Hearing this, Shirt Saixia trembled with anger. She took a step back and sneered. What about you? Commander Gong told you to leave, but you're still hanging around here. Aren't you afraid that zombies will run out of City D and bite you directly? Of course Zhong Zimo was afraid, but he had to stay here. He was not sure if he would have such a good opportunity to get close to Gong Yi after he left. Fortunately, the garrisons under Gong Yi are very capable, as well as Li Haifu's group of psychics. They should defend City D, and not let the zombies inside City D out. Zhong Zimo believes that this is wealth and honor, which can only be achieved through risk. At this time, Huami had already left Mi Guiyuan and walked over. She seemed to see that Zhong Zimo was confident and said, "Don't think too highly of the superpowers. They are not gods. And even if they are very powerful, it doesn't mean that you, the outsiders, won't die. If you are infected with the poison from the zombies, you will die miserably." Zhong Zimo looked at Huami coldly. He couldn't even listen to Shirt Saixia's words, let alone Huami, whom he had always looked down upon. Seeing him like this, Huami stopped trying to persuade him. She just waved to Shirt Saixia, and the two of them went into City D to fight the zombies. Only after the two women's backs disappeared at the end of the snowy trail did Mi Guiyuan walk to Zhong Zimo's side and said, "What should we do now? That woman named Hua Mi has to stay with her man no matter what." As he spoke, Mi Guiyuan's eyes were filled with disdain and contempt, and he complained in a low voice, "This kind of woman is really disgusting." Zhong Zimo's face was gloomy, and he gritted his teeth. "Wait. Luckily I have a lot of money now. I don't believe those garrisons can hold back." Because they had money, they could buy supplies from Xiangqing and continue to support those women. The opportunity is here. As long as he is well prepared, Zhong Zimo doesn't believe that all the garrisons are monks. He pulled Mi Guiyuan's clothes and whispered to Mi Guiyuan, "Because Huami is here, I guess those garrisons can't let go. Let's start with others first." As he spoke, he looked at Li Haifu and other power users who were sorting their gloves nearby. Gong Yi's garrison elites entered City D before dawn. Huami and Shirt Saixia were the second group to go in. People like Li Haifu, who have special powers, took a little longer to enter City D. They also had to make their own breakfast in the morning, so it took some time. Now Li Haifu and other power users have gathered, each wearing 3 pairs of gloves, ready to break the zombies' necks. The gloves were bought from Hua Mi using crystal cores. It is said to be made of sterile material, suitable for breaking the zombies' necks without getting their hands dirty. Zhong Zimo pointed to the U.S. source. "These people with special abilities are the ones I want to win over. If we can control them, we will be no different from Zhang Jifeng before." Therefore, Gong Yi has to curry favor with Li Haifu and other people with special abilities, and also wants to win them over. Mi Guiyuan understood, stepped forward, and greeted Li Haifu and the other power users. "Hello, brothers, let's chat." He was just about to take Li Haifu and other people with special abilities to find a woman for entertainment. Li Haifu led the team and did not look happy. "Please make way, we are very busy. Anyone who is like Mi Guiyuan and Zhong Zimo only knows how to live and fear death and stay outside the city. They entered the city to kill zombies, and everyone fought for their lives. No one has time to chat with the United States. Everyone was in a hurry." Mi Guiyuan, who was completely ignored, looked at Zhong Zimo with a grim face. He felt that not only was Garrison ignorant of romance, but even normal men like Li Haifu were planning to become monks. What happened to this world? Has everyone become so pure and indifferent? Zhong Zimo asked Mi Guiyuan to be patient. Li Haifu and the others were busy because they had to go into the city to kill zombies. "Wait till evening. At night, everyone has to go back to sleep." Zhong Zimo will not give up on winning over Li Haifu and his group of people with special abilities. Now that Gong Yi and Li Haifu have become a team, this matter will be easier to handle. If they attack Gong Yi, wouldn't that mean they have also infiltrated Li Haifu and his team of supernatural beings? This is a win-win situation. At this time, Li Haifu and the psychics had already entered the city and caught up with Huami and Shirtsaixia. Zombies began to wander around the streets. These were the ones that were missed by the garrison. If you want to kill more zombies, you have to follow Gong Yi. Follow closely. Shirtsaixia is currently responsible for dealing with these 3 or 2 wandering zombies. Huami got a vending machine from somewhere. Once fully charged, it can run for at least half a month. Li Haifu and other psychics gathered around and took a look at the items in the vending machine. Someone pointed at the snow boots and said, "My shoes are wet. Can I buy a pair of shoes? How do I buy this?" Huami took out her phone and explained, "You can use crystal cores to top up. 100 crystal cores can be exchanged for 100,000 yuan. I will transfer the money to you, and you can just scan the code to make the purchase." Li Haifu and the others did not hesitate at all. They took out the crystal cores they had dug and came to Huami to recharge them. Some people also asked Huami, "Do you still have the skewers from yesterday?" Huami, "Yes, it's self-service. I'll put the ingredients on the roadside for you, and you can bake it yourself." Isn't this more entertaining than playing with women? Killing zombies is an adrenaline-pumping experience, and you can also eat skewers and drink beer along the way. The most important thing is that the crystal cores dug out can be used to exchange for money, and then use the money to buy a lot of supplies. What else can you ask for in life? After a while, Shirtsaixia got rid of the zombies wandering around the street. She turned around, scanned the code, and bought an Oreo strawberry cake. While picking up the cake with a small fork, she said to Huami, "I plan to challenge myself. I want to get closer to the garrison." For Shirtsaixia, she can now accurately shoot zombies in the head. The zombies are too slow and too few in number, so they're no longer interesting to her. She has begun to enjoy killing zombies. Huami sat on a lounge chair with a big parasol above her head. "Go ahead, but I think killing zombies with a gun is not a long-term solution. The bullets are no longer producible, unless the industrial chain can be fully operational. So, in the end, the survivors will still have to use cold weapons to fight zombies and mutated plants and animals." When Shirtsaixia heard this, he returned the AK-47, which had no bullets left, to Huami. "Ami, do you have a knife?" Huami has always strictly controlled her thermal weapons. So the AK-47 in her hand was lent to Shirtsaixia, not given as a gift. Even though Shirtsaixia had used up all the bullets, he still had to return the AK-47 to Huami. However, Huami sells cold weapons. In the past, she had been hanging around the stalls in Xiangqing, and she also mobilized Sichuan to purchase large quantities of various supplies for her. Over time, a lot of cold weapons were stored in her level 35 warehouse. All kinds of things. Huami can sell these cold weapons at a very cheap price. Shirtsaixia squatted in front of a pile of cold weapons that looked like a small mountain and selected a sharp axe. She waved it twice and felt it was very good. She readily paid 10 crystal cores and started chopping zombies with the axe. After a while, Huami had rested enough, so she stood up and stretched out a few feet. She also took out a sharp machete, and she and Shirtsaixia worked on the left and right to clear the zombies wandering on the snow path. Busy until evening. Gong Yi will not up zombies at night. He summoned the garrison elites and held a meeting in the evening to summarize their experiences in killing zombies. Then ask each captain to submit a list and select more garrisons to come to City D to kill zombies. Gong Yi had a premonition that the world would soon undergo a qualitative change. But before that, his garrisons must grow up as quickly as possible. At this time, Li Haifu and his group of people with special abilities also followed Gong Yi to garrison and hold a meeting together. They seemed to be extremely studious. After all, the world had become what it was. If the garrisons communicated more with those with special abilities, they would have a better chance of survival in the future. Zhong Zimo and Mi Guiyuan were standing guard beside their car. In the car behind them, the women were chattering and laughing beside the smokeless wood stove. Someone leaned his head to open the car door and said to Zhong Zimo and Mi Guiyuan outside, "Look, Qin Xiaolan is here." Everyone looked over there. On a snowy night, Qin Xiaolan, shivering from the cold, walked out of City D with her arms folded and her body hunched. Seeing Mi Guiyuan, Qin Xiaolan rushed over, shivering all over. I really can't stand the cold. Give me something to eat. I'm willing to do anything you ask me to do. Can you give me something to eat so I can get in the car and warm myself by the fire? She thought that Huami would not be able to move all the supplies in the D City Management Building in a short time. So she went back to the basement, prepared to stay there forever. As a result, when she finished eating the little remaining supplies and went to find food, Qin Xiaolan discovered that there was no food left in the entire building. There was not even a bite of food to fill my stomach. She didn't give up and spent a whole day searching the administration building. It is indeed so. Did Huami use some kind of magic to empty the entire building of supplies? Qin Xiaolan was so resentful that she really wanted to tear Huami into thousands of pieces. Mi Guiyuan looked at Qin Xiaolan with some disgust. Her hair was greasy, she was skinny, and her face was sallow and withered. Which man would want a woman like this, who looks to be in her 40s? Qin Xiaolan didn't look so sloppy before. It has only been a short time. It is true that time makes people grow old and beauty fades easily. Give me something to eat. Qin Xiaolan was still begging. As long as you can give me something to eat, I can let you do whatever you want. You can do anything, just give her something to eat. Mi Guiyuan took a bag of bread and handed it to Qin Xiaolan, his mouth full of disdain and charity. Here, take the food and leave quickly. We don't need you here. However, the bread he handed out was stopped by Zhong Zimo. Zhong Zimo's eyes, hidden behind the lenses, were faintly shining with an unfathomable light. He pinched the bread between his fingers and asked Qin Xiaolan, "Are you really willing to do anything?" Qin Xiaolan nodded hurriedly. "No matter how many of you come, no matter how you want to sleep with me, I will cooperate."
She has really changed a lot.
As Ma Yongchuan's secretary, Zhong Zimo naturally knew Qin Xiaolan before. It seems that Qin Xiaolan suffered a lot after being taken away by Monkey Brother. Zhong Zimo pointed to Gong Yi, who was coming out of a tent after a meeting in the distance. "Did you see him? If you can find a way to get him to send Huami back to Xiangqing, you can have as much food as you want in the future." Hearing this, Mi Guiyuan opened his mouth, as if he wanted to say something. But before he could say anything, Qin Xiaolan nodded quickly. Okay, it's a deal." Zhong Zimo smiled and said, "Perhaps Huami will not cooperate. You can use some other means to force her to leave here. Of course, I'm just suggesting it. You decide for yourself what means to use." All of the above are just Zhong Zimo's casual suggestions. He did not instruct Qin Xiaolan to do anything. Seeing Qin Xiaolan nod, Zhong Zimo threw the bread in his hand over. The feeding posture is similar to feeding a dog. The bread fell to the ground. Qin Xiaolan picked it up from the snow, ran onto the bus, and started eating it in big mouthfuls. Mi Guiyuan, who was outside the car, walked to Zhong Zimo's side and asked quietly, how could Gong Yi be attracted to Qin Xiaolan's looks? Gong Yi's current status and position are incomparable to before. What kind of women do you think he doesn't have? Qin Xiaolan is really too bad. Zhong Zimo leaned over, holding a lighter in his hand, and lit a cigarette. Everything she does to Huami has a motive. Let other women target Huami. They don't have such strong hatred towards Huami. Nor will they necessarily try their best to exclude Huami. But Qin Xiaolan is different. Qin Xiaolan hates Huami. This kind of hatred is enough to drive Qin Xiaolan to fight to the death. Hearing this, Mi Guiyuan stopped talking. He felt pity for Huami's impending fate. But Mi Guiyuan did not pity Huami. After all, it was she who blocked the way and insisted on staying in City D, preventing others from climbing up the ladder. And so it was until the next morning. Everyone took their positions and started getting ready to go into City D to kill zombies. This is the good thing about the frozen zombies. You can kill as many as you want, just blast open a little bit of the ice and release the zombies inside. When you want to take a break, you don't have to worry about these zombies. When you have rested enough, just continue to the zombies out. Several women twisted their waists and joined Li Haifu's group of psychics. Even from a distance, I could hear them calling brother, brother tall, or brother short. Huami followed Gong Yi out of the nanny car and glanced at Li Haifu. I don't know if it's an illusion, but I always feel that people with special abilities like Li Haifu are trying to avoid these women with coquettish voices. At this time, Qin Xiaolan stumbled over and knelt directly in front of Huami and Gong Yi. Sister Huami, please let me go. Qin Xiaolan is getting old really fast. She was wearing a thin down jacket, revealing a hooded head of hair as dry and yellow as hay. Seeing Gong Yi stop and look down at her, Qin Xiaolan was crying pitifully, with tear marks all over her blemish-covered face. Sister Huami, I know I was very rude to you before. Please forgive me. I was wrong. I was really wrong. Huami, who was about to go find Shirt Saixia, looked at Qin Xiaolan with a puzzled expression. What did I do to you? Why are you kneeling here to beg for my forgiveness? It seems not. Since reuniting with Qin Xiaolan, Huami has only attacked Qin Xiaolan once. Isn't it all up to Qin Xiaolan to do what she needs to do after this? Qin Xiaolan cried and shook her head. Seeing Gong Yi was about to leave, she knelt down and blocked Gong Yi's way. Sister Huami, I know I was very rude to you before, but my life is really too difficult. Please let me go. I just want to live a good life. Huami grabbed Gong Yi, who was standing in front of her, and pushed him aside. She lowered her head and faced Qin Xiaolan. Since you sound so pitiful, then tell me, why didn't I let you go? Qin Xiaolan crawled over on her knees. Her posture was as pitiful as it could be.
Please give me a chance to live.
I know you are angry, Sister Huami. You can target me, but after that, can you give me some food?
Just a little bit.
When her hand was about to reach Huami's instep, Huami took 2 steps back to avoid physical contact with Qin Xiaolan. Huami nodded. You want something to eat? Sure, there will be a toe removal team coming today. You will go to the toe removal team to clear the snow. 3 meals and 2 snacks a day will be provided, and there will be barbecue and beer for supper in the evening. No one had time to target Qin Xiaolan. In fact, before today, Huami hadn't even thought of Qin Xiaolan. A lazy woman who only wants to sell her body to make a living is not worth Huami's time and energy. If Qin Xiaolan wants to eat, she can just go to work. It's impossible that she doesn't want to work and has to wait for Huami to bring food to Qin Xiaolan. Qin Xiaolan shook her head. I can't do heavy work, Sister Huami. You know my body is not good enough. As she cried, she looked up at Gong Yi. Although his face looked old and ugly, this did not prevent Qin Xiaolan from looking at Gong Yi pitifully. An ordinary pregnant woman would probably be out of breath after being harassed by Qin Xiaolan like this. In this extreme environment, Huami, with such a big belly, might have a miscarriage if she was not careful. If you have a miscarriage, you may not be able to find a doctor or a nurse to treat it. But Huami was fine. She stood in the snow and looked at Qin Xiaolan coldly. It's just sweeping snow. It's okay. People with weaker constitutions than you can sweep it. Why can't you do it? Don't you have a broom? Do you want me to lend you one? The snow is so heavy that relying solely on sweeping robots and garbage trucks is just a drop in the bucket. There are more and more garrisons here, and every day there are new garrisons on the list coming to gain experience. Therefore, large quantities of supplies had to be brought over, and the snowy road from the entrance of City D to the highway also had to be cleaned up. With so many people around, many details need to be taken care of. Huami also plans to set up a teleportation point at the gate of City D today. After the teleportation point is set up, more survivors are needed to build surrounding facilities around the teleportation point. There are still many job opportunities here. Qin Xiaolan continued to anger Huami. No, Sister Huami. Why are you doing this to me? You have a strong man and a child who is about to be born. Please let me go. So let me ask you, what did I do to you that made you feel that I didn't let you go? Tell me, and I'll let you go. Huami was no longer in a hurry to do her thing. She opened the door of the nanny car and sat on the clean footrest. Then he said to Gong Yi, you go and do your thing. I'll have a good chat with Miss Qin. Gong Yi looked at Qin Xiaolan with a pair of sharp eyes, his brows tightly furrowed. He felt that women like Qin Xiaolan were a little scary. Qin Xiaolan obviously seems to be the weaker party and is very fragile. But it just makes people feel angry. There is no way to kill such a woman. Because she was weak, she kowtowed and cried. Her cries were like tears of blood, and she kept saying, let me go, give me a way to live. If I really killed Qin Xiaolan or even slapped her, it would be a sin. This was the first time Gong Yi had seen this kind of woman, who was full of the idea that the weak were always right. He turned around and said to Huami with worry, "Wife, why don't you go back to Xiangqing first?" He was afraid that Huami would get hurt because of Qin Xiaolan. So Gong Yi came up with the idea of sending Huami back to Xiangqing. You can't afford to offend him, but at least his wife can avoid him. Huami calmly looked up and smiled at Gong Yi. "Why do you want to go back to Xiangqing?" "I won't go back." She felt that she was fine and had not become ill because of her anger. She even planned to have a good talk with Qin Xiaolan. So Huami urged Gong Yi again. "Go and do your thing. Don't bother me if you have nothing to do.
I can handle this."
As soon as Huami finished speaking, Qin Xiaolan rushed forward and was about to hug Gong Yi's legs. However, Gong Yi was quick-witted and took a few steps back, causing Qin Xiaolan to fall into the snow.
I'm sorry.
My knees hurt so much from kneeling.
I'm really sorry.
Qin Xiaolan was lying in the snow, looking aggrieved. She struggled to kneel down again, looking at Gong Yi and Huami pitifully. It was as if the ones who asked her to kneel here were Huami and Gong Yi. Huami raised her eyebrows, still calmly, and said to Qin Xiaolan, "Why don't you get up? If you don't kneel, you won't throw yourself on my husband." No, I won't get up until you let me go." Qin Xiaolan cried and shook her head, then began to kowtow to Huami again. Huami nodded and said expressionlessly, Okay, I'll let you go. If you want me to let you go, I'll let you go. I'll let you go." Little did she know that Qin Xiaolan seemed to not understand what people were saying and kept shouting, "Sister Huami, please don't speak so sarcastic. I'm really scared.
Please give me a way out."
This attitude made Saixia, who was watching from the side, very angry. She walked over quickly and kicked Qin Xiaolan, knocking her to the side. "Who are you mad at here? Do you think you are right just because you are weak? Try to act like that again?" Saixia has been in a bad mood recently, all because of killing zombies. Some women gathered around and pointed at Saixia and said, "How could you hit someone? Qin Xiaolan is obviously weaker than you. If something happens to her when you kick her, it would be a life at stake." Qin Xiaolan looks really pitiful. She kept kneeling on the ground and begging, not daring to fight back at all. Saixia took a deep breath and was about to explode with anger. Even a bystander like her could be so angry at Qin Xiaolan. Saixia was really worried about how angry Huami would be at Qin Xiaolan. Gong Yi winked at Li Haifu, who came over and asked him to get Qin Xiaolan away. Li Haifu had just bent down and had not yet touched Qin Xiaolan. Qin Xiaolan immediately screamed, "Don't kill me. Please don't kill me. You are a superpower. You can kill me with just one finger. Please don't kill me." Li Haifu, who was about to help drag Qin Xiaolan away, was stunned. When was he going to kill Qin Xiaolan? As a result, Li Haifu didn't dare to touch Qin Xiaolan anymore. Mi Guiyuan, who was standing in the distance, looked at Zhong Zimo with a hint of pride in his eyes. There was no expression on Zhong Zimo's face, as if he was just watching a show. Huami was sitting on the pedal of the car, stroking her belly with one hand, and watching Qin Xiaolan's performance quietly. At this time, a large circle of people surrounded them. Gong Yi was already extremely annoyed. "Are we going to waste time here?
Qin Xiaolan, right?
Are you going to let us go kill the zombies? If this continues, everyone will just have to stay here and watch Qin Xiaolan cry and beg, and they won't have to kill zombies." A woman whispered, "It seems that Xiaolan and Madame Gong have a deep conflict. Madame Gong should avoid it to avoid delaying things and making Xiaolan more emotional. This is to persuade Huami to leave here." Huami looked at the woman who was speaking. "I think Qin Xiaolan's mental state is not right, so we should just forcibly send her to Xiangqing for treatment. Otherwise, if she stays here, she might go crazy in the middle of the night and cut your heads like watermelons. For the safety of all of you, let's send Qin Xiaolan back to Xiangqing together. Don't leave anyone behind." That's very possible. The performance was overdone, and he looked like a psychopath. But Huami didn't care because Qin Xiaolan was not going to sleep with Huami and Gong Yi anyway. She got on the bus and slept in the same car with those women who were engaged in the adult love trade. Those women originally wanted to put pressure on Hua Mi and drive her away. Everyone shut up and dared not talk nonsense anymore. They just wanted to force Hua Mi away so that they could get closer to the garrison. Hua Mi's presence here has seriously hindered men's pursuit of pleasure. They never thought about accompanying Qin Xiaolan back to Xiangqing. However, Qin Xiaolan was indeed a little too much today and really looked like she was mentally ill. Even though Hua Mi didn't say anything, she was still kowtowing and begging for mercy. You can't scold her or hit her, and if you pull her away with your hands, she will still cry and scream as if she is being murdered. Hua Mi glanced around and saw that no woman spoke up, so she couldn't help but sneer. It is obvious that there is something fishy going on with Qin Xiaolan. He really wanted to force her to leave. Qin Xiaolan, who was lying on the ground, suddenly crawled towards Hua Mi and said, Sister Hua Mi, please don't send me to Xiangqing. I will serve you, bring you tea and water, wash your clothes, and give you. Gong Mi wanted to stand in front of Hua Mi. Hua Mi raised her foot and kicked Qin Xiaolan to the ground. That's enough. I need to go into City D to fight zombies. Don't waste my time. Qin Xiaolan started crying again, but Hua Mi no longer cared. Seeing Qin Xiaolan crawling over again, crying and begging for mercy, Hua Mi raised her hand. Qin Xiaolan, don't play the game of the weak being right with me. If you have the guts, come to D City and cry. You want me to leave D City? Dream on. It seemed as if Qin Xiaolan wanted to annoy Hua Mi to death and make her leave City D. The more this happened, the more Hua Mi refused to leave. Mi Guiyuan and Zhong Zimo, who were in the distance, had ugly expressions on their faces. Seeing Hua Mi with a big belly, he winked at Shirt Saixia and kicked Qin Xiaolan away again. She walked straight toward City D, and Gong Yi hurriedly followed. Qin Xiaolan fell into the soft snow, then got up and begged for mercy. Shirt Saixia grabbed Qin Xiaolan. Come on, Qin Xiaolan. I'm here to take you back to Xiangqing. You have a serious brain disease and need treatment. Qin Xiaolan, who had never done any heavy work, had no chance of defeating Shirt Saixia. She screamed. But ever since she showed up, she's been in this hysterical state. Everyone looked at it for a while, especially Li Haifu and the others. They all shook their heads and turned away. Who dares to take care of Qin Xiaolan's affairs? They are afraid of being blackmailed. However, Shirt Saixia was stopped by Zhong Zimo when he was about to drag Qin Xiaolan onto the highway. Zhong Zimo gritted his teeth and confronted Shirt Saixia. Shirt Saixia, what are you doing now? Are you so heartless? Where are you going to take this poor woman Qin Xiaolan? Qin Xiaolan can't leave now. She has to stay here and continue to anger Hua Mi. Shirt Saixia. Think about it. You have no femininity to begin with. So what's the difference between you and a tomboy now? Let Qin Xiaolan go quickly. Be a decent person. No one will like you if you do this. At least Zhong Zimo wouldn't like this kind of tomboyish woman. As soon as he finished speaking, Zhou Qing shouted from a distance, Xia Xia, beautiful lady, be my wife. It was as if he was deliberately going against Zhong Zimo. Zhou Qing was carrying an AK-47, and his voice was particularly loud. It was so loud that Shirt Saixia blushed and her heart beat fast. She turned around and knocked the struggling Qin Xiaolan unconscious with a palm, and then she was about to get on the highway with a knife on her back, still scolding Zhou Qing. What nonsense are you talking about? But his arm was caught by Zhong Zimo again. Because of Zhou Cheng's identity, Zhong Zimo didn't dare to confront Zhou Qing directly. He vented his resentment on Shirt Saixia and asked in a cold voice, Kai Xia, what is your relationship with Zhou Qing? No one likes Shirt Saixia except Zhong Zimo. This has always been Zhong Zimo's perception. In fact, when being with Shirt Saixia, Zhong Zimo has always been at a psychological advantage. He felt that he was giving alms to Shirt Saixia. If Shirt Saixia didn't have that little ability, she wouldn't have been able to work as Qin Zhen's secretary. Zhong Zimo would not consider a plain-looking woman like Shirt Saixia. But Zhou Qing still stood there and shouted, Xia Xia, do you agree or not? If you don't agree, I'll come back and ask you tomorrow. If you don't agree tomorrow, I'll ask again the day after tomorrow. Hua Mi, who was walking from a distance, gave Zhou Qing a thumbs up. Shirt Saixia's face turned even redder, and she glared at Zhou Qing several times. She shook off Zhong Zimo's grip. I'll advise you one last time. Leave quickly and stop doing these things. Otherwise you won't end up well. This was a major matter that Zhong Zimo could not understand. Shirt Saixia could not explain it, nor did he want to spend time trying to change Zhong Zimo's mind. She dragged Qin Xiaolan, who had been knocked unconscious by a knife, and threw the woman directly into the ice house next to the Hunan Di Expressway. He no longer cared about Qin Xiaolan. As long as Qin Xiaolan doesn't come to cause trouble, no one will care if she wants to do adult love trade on Hunan Di Expressway. When Shirt Saixia returned to the gate of City D, Zhong Zimo, with a stern face, wanted to go up and talk to Shirt Saixia. But Shirt Saixia took her axe and went straight into City D. She did not stop Zhong Zimo. If Zhong Zimo wanted to talk to her, Shirt Saixia could also talk, as long as Zhong Zimo enters City D. However, Zhong Zimo did not hesitate at all and stopped directly at the entrance of City D. Everyone knows it's dangerous in there. Mi Guiyuan walked over, looked at Zhong Zimo, and didn't dare to take another step forward. He listened to the zombies roaring from City D and was terrified. What should I do now? Should I continue to stay here? All plans failed, and the garrisons didn't even look at the women around them. Mi Guiyuan felt that he had to rely on women to build closer relations with the garrison. It seems difficult. Zhong Zimo's cheeks moved, and he gritted his teeth. I don't believe that they will stay. All these garrisons will become monks one by one. He is a man. Because he is a man, Zhong Zimo also understands men. Mi Guiyuan raised his hand and rubbed his face, then looked towards City D with fear. He thought of Huami, who he couldn't drive away or make angry no matter what, and cursed secretly. Then Zhong Zimo said firmly, it won't last long. How many of these garrisons can stand looking at these beautiful women every day? Don't worry, it won't last long. He decided to send a few more women tonight to hang around the garrison. He had even imagined it. These women want to dress provocatively, expose this and that, be bolder and more unrestrained. Zhong Zimo and Mi Guiyuan have experience in planning all of this. The two of them even found some beautiful starlights and prepared for a bonfire party in the snow. Anyway, those garrisons will come out at night, right? In City D, Huami set up a teleportation point at the entrance of City D. Her last Blackland upgrade gave her 17 square meters of Blackland, but Huami has not yet settled all of it. Seeing that City D had become a training ground for the garrison, Huami placed a teleportation point here to save the garrison from having to travel back and forth. After setting up the teleportation point at the entrance of City D, Huami instantly went to Xiangqing and gave Qi Chuan a bunch of teleportation tickets. It is convenient for Qi Chuan to drag supplies to City D. After doing all this, Huami began to upgrade her factory, upgrading the level 18 factory to level 19. The level 19 factory has 2 more fixed production materials, machete and axe, and limited production, matcha cake x50, cheesecake x25. Synthetic production, energy crystal bead x1, requires energy condensed bead consumption x 10,000, agree cancel when a lucky draw x1 remaining draws x31. Huami pondered over this energy crystal bead and used 10,000 energy condensed beads to synthesize an energy crystal bead. She held it in her hand and looked at it. This so-called energy crystal bead was about the same size as a zombie's crystal core. They are all the size of pomegranate seeds. Even the texture is the same as that of the zombie's crystal core, very hard. However, the crystal core of the zombie is a transparent color with blood streaks. However, the energy crystal beads produced in Huami's level 19 factory are a light golden color. Just looking at this color makes people feel very comfortable. Unlike the zombie crystal core, it does not have an indescribable bloody smell. Huami produced 100,000 energy crystal beads, returned to City D, and found Gong Yi. Gong Yi is killing zombies. The way he kills zombies is different from how others kill zombies. Others killed zombies by going forward with weapons and chopping them, but Li Haifu and his friends grabbed the zombies' heads and twisted their necks. Gong Yi just stood there, and the crystal cores in the brains of all the zombies that approached him automatically left their brains. Watching the crystal cores flying from all directions, gathering into a line in the air and slowly falling into a sack at Gong Yi's feet. Huami opened her mouth wide in envy and jealousy. This is truly a zombie nemesis. With Gong Yi's skill, digging out zombie crystal cores is really easy. Seeing Huami coming over, Gong Yi turned around and greeted her with a smile. Why are you here? Not doing your business anymore? Huami took out an energy crystal bead. I got a new gadget and I want you to experiment with it. Gong Yi took the energy crystal bead from Huami's hand without any hesitation and absorbed it directly. Facing Huami's expectant gaze, Gong Yi frowned slightly. Compared to the energy condensate bead, the energy here is pure. After saying this, his face looked strange, and he bent down slightly and hugged his lower abdomen. But I don't think ordinary people with special abilities can use it. My stomach hurts. He reached out, held Huami's shoulders, and turned her body around. Wife, please find a safe place first. I'm going to have diarrhea. Huami looked puzzled. Hey, what's wrong with your stomach? Because the energy is too pure, and there is too much of it. Even Gong Yi couldn't absorb it. He had stomach cramps and could only send Huami away. Without having time to answer Huami, Gong Yi ran away while killing the zombies. I still remember yelling, "Honey, don't let anyone use this thing." Remember therefore, Huami, who has synthesized 100,000 energy crystals. Huami returned to the vending machine, learned her lesson, and put a few bottles of energy drops into the vending machine. The fact that the zombie crystal cores are too brutal has been compiled into an internal textbook by the garrison and distributed to every team leader. The garrison team leader will organize his own team and study these garrison internal teaching materials every day. Li Haifu and the others also got a copy, so they all knew that zombie crystal cores could be absorbed, but it was not recommended. The side effects are serious. Therefore, they would use crystal cores to exchange for money from Huami, and then use the money to consume at vending machines. Currently, they drink bottled energy drops, and every time they moisten their lips, they can replenish their body's supernatural powers. After putting the bottles of energy drops on the shelves, Huami thought about it and put another 100,000 teleportation tickets on the shelves. Now, apart from Gong Yi's garrison, who no longer needs to leave City D, even Li Haifu and his men can enter and exit City D freely with their teleportation tickets. Zhong Zimo and Mi Guiyuan waited at the gate of City D for 3 days. During this period, in addition to my 8th uncle's towing team, which would come down from the Hunan D Expressway every day to clear the snow at the gate of D City. None of the garrisons or the psychics have ever left City D. What's more, Huami and Shirtsaisha never came out of City D again. Day by day, Zhong Zimo's expression became uglier and uglier, and Mi Guiyuan's temper is becoming more and more violent. He really couldn't stand such harsh freezing weather, so he took the initiative to find Zhong Zimo. I think those people will have to live in City D. We have to think of other ways. He gestured to the tow truck team working in the distance. How about letting the women go and pick up those guests? These words made Zhong Zimo's eyes filled with anger. Mi Guiyuan's eyes were filled with a hint of sarcasm. Well, if you insist on supporting these women, then I have nothing to say. How much money do you have left? The prices of supplies have gone up. The supplies of City D were placed in the management building, and a building full of supplies had already fallen into Huami's pocket. Even if they wanted to pursue ownership of these materials, they had no way to do it. Because City D is full of wandering zombies, they can't enter City D at all. With the appearance of crystal cores, those psychics were using the crystal cores to exchange for the money in Huami's hands. This has brought a certain impact on the value of materials. At least on the Hunan D Expressway, prices of goods began to rise. Zhong Zimo had no other income. Although he controlled the reserve fund account of City C, the rising prices of materials meant that the materials he could buy with the money he had were decreasing day by day. Zhong Zimo lowered his head and rubbed his brows. Hold on a little longer. For now, he has enough money. As long as the garrisons and the psychics can come out every day, he still has the confidence to send those women to the beds of the garrisons and the psychics. At least the willpower of people with special abilities like Li Haifu is not as high as that of the garrison. However, after waiting for a few more days, Apart from the clearance teams that came every day to clear the obstacles, the garrisons and the psychics still did not come out of City D. Prices continue to rise. The price of Coke, which used to cost 100 yuan a bottle, has risen to 250 yuan a bottle. This is definitely not a good phenomenon. In particular, Zhong Zimo had to hire people to shovel the snow. If no one shoveled the snow, their cars would be stuck in the snow. But labor is also very expensive now. We couldn't even afford to provide supplies for 3 meals a day, and there was no way to hire anyone to shovel the snow. Now, if you hire a worker for a day, you have to be responsible for 3 meals and 2 snacks a day, and you also have to pay him a daily salary of 10,000 yuan. If we bargain further, the salary might be 15,000 a day. After a few days, Zhong Zimo's face became darker and darker. He pointed at the worker in front of him who wanted to raise the price. The day before yesterday, it was 10,000 a day. Yesterday, it was 15,000 a day. And today you are raising the price to 20,000. How can you raise the price like this? Even if I have mountains of gold and silver, I can't stand your torment. This was something that Zhong Zimo and Mi Guiyuan could not understand at all. Isn't it said that it is the end of the world? Labor should be very cheap. After all, in extreme environments, there are many survivors but few job opportunities. The workers looked disdainful. Are you going to pay or not? If not, I'm leaving. They also have 3 meals a day and 2 snacks, so why do they have to run to the gate of D City to shovel snow for Zhong Zimo and the others? With the garrison's unremitting propaganda, who doesn't know that City D is dangerous? There are zombies in here. So, if the pay wasn't very high, no one would be willing to stay here and shovel snow for Zhong Zimo and his group. Zhong Zimo's eyes turned black with anger, and he pointed in the direction of the highway. Go ahead, go ahead. 20,000 yuan a day. Why don't you just go rob? Before the end of the world, paying someone 600 a day for hard labor was considered a high salary. Not only has the labor cost increased several times, but these workers have nothing to do except shoveling snow. Mi Guiyuan on the side opened his mouth and watched helplessly as the salary he had worked so hard to find was driven away by Zhong Zimo. He sighed, shook his head, and got into the bus. Now he is living on Zhong Zimo, and Mi Guiyuan has done all the persuasion and advice he should have given him. Zhong Zimo refused to listen, and Mi Guiyuan had no other choice. But problems always have to be solved. Because no one was shoveling the snow, the bus was buried in the snow in just half a day. Zhong Zimo personally found his 8th uncle and wanted his 8th uncle's towing team to help shovel the snow around their bus. We have to spend a lot of manpower to clean up the snow. It's hard to find labor now. There's no other way. Zhong Zimo became anxious when he heard this. How can there be no solution? There are so many survivors now. Before he could finish his words, Uncle 8 grinned. Secretary Zhong, have you been out of touch with the outside world for too long? There are factories under construction everywhere in and outside Xiangqing, and everyone is very busy. Our Xiangqing base plan is about to start, and labor is very expensive. Because all the survivors are coming to Xiangqing, the city wall planning of Xiangqing has expanded the original area of Xiangqing several times. Building city walls now requires endless manpower. As long as you are willing to work hard and get 3 meals a day and 2 snacks, there will be no problem at all. 20,000 a day is a bit exaggerated, but don't you see where this place is? The 8th uncle continued to educate Zhong Zimo. He pointed to his subordinates who were working hard to clear the obstacles. Unless you pay them with crystal cores and they can accept it, otherwise you'd better just let them raise the price. The crystal core comes from the brain of zombies. It is said that 100 crystal cores can be exchanged for 100,000 yuan. So some of the strong men under 8th uncle have been secretly studying the internal information of the garrison these days. Some strong men who are not afraid of death want to enter City D to kill zombies. Internal documents say that these zombies move slowly and react clumsily, like fools, and they don't know how to avoid danger when they encounter it. As long as they protect themselves well, the crystal cores in their brains will be like found for free. You can easily kill dozens of zombies in a day. So I have time to shovel snow and the courage to hang around the gate of D City and earn the 20,000 yuan in labor fees. Why not go into City D to kill zombies? Zhong Zimo looked as if he had lost his parents and thought for a long time. He stopped his eighth uncle, who was about to leave, and asked with a serious face, "I don't see any garrison coming out of City D recently. Do you know any inside information?" Eighth uncle looked at Zhong Zimo as if he was a fool, shook his head, and turned away. He would never tell Zhong Zimo that City D is now full of garrisons and people with special abilities. There are also quite a few strong men. Everyone entered the city on a teleportation ticket. There are also many vending machines in the city, which have everything and can be recharged with crystal cores. There is no need for everyone to leave City D. If you want to leave City D, you can buy a teleportation ticket from the vending machine, and then you can go directly to Xiangqing, City A, City B, or City C. They're clearing the snow trails here just to facilitate the survivors who don't have teleportation tickets. But eighth uncle would not tell these things to Zhong Zimo, as they were not familiar with each other. Zhong Zimo turned around and called Shirtsaixia. He hoped to hear something from Shirtsaixia. Shirtsaixia's cell phone has been muted. This is written in the second issue of the garrison's internal information. Although zombies move slowly, they have keen hearing. When hunting zombies, your cell phone must be muted, otherwise it will not only alert the zombies, but also attract siege from nearby zombies. Therefore, Zhong Zimo called Shirtsaixia several times in a row, but no one answered. He was so angry that he was panicking. More importantly, Zhong Zimo found that he had nothing except a reserve fund account in City C. The key point is that there is not much money left in City C now. Mi Guiyuan came over and asked Zhong Zimo, "What should we do now? Should we continue to waste time here? Everything else is fine. There is no sign of any garrison or psychic left. There is no point in continuing to waste time like this." Zhong Zimo had a gloomy face and lowered his voice. "For the last time, please bring some supplies over and hold out for the last few days. If that doesn't work, we'll find another way." Mi Guiyuan nodded slightly and stopped persuading him. At this time, Zhong Zimo finally spent a lot of money to transport a batch of supplies from Xiangqing to the gate of D City. Qin Xiaolan, looking haggard, came back. She went straight to Zhong Zimo and Mi Guiyuan and asked them for supplies. "I want a lot of supplies. A lot of supplies. Give me enough supplies for a snowmobile." Qin Xiaolan paused and added, "Give me another gun. I heard that they didn't actually leave City D, but have been staying in City D the whole time. In fact, all the survivors of Hunan D Expressway know about this. Because the teleportation tickets for the D City entrance teleportation point have been distributed to every ice house. All survivors who want to kill zombies can spend 10,000 yuan to buy a teleportation ticket to the D City entrance teleportation point and enter D City to kill zombie crystal cores. Except for Zhong Zimo and Mi Guiyuan, many people know it. Qin Xiaolan had been doing the adult love trade on the Hunan D Expressway for a few days, and she knew some inside information that many people didn't know. Mi Guiyuan opened his mouth and wanted to say something, but Zhong Zimo snorted coldly and agreed to everything Qin Xiaolan wanted. Although Huami strictly controls the leakage of guns, Zhong Zimo and Mi Guiyuan want to spend a lot of money to get a gun. They can still find a way. After Qin Xiaolan turned away expressionlessly, Mi Guiyuan finally squeezed out a few words from between his teeth. "If you give her a gun, someone will die." Judging from Qin Xiaolan's mental state, the feud between her and Huami has reached a point where there is no end in sight. Huami is Gong Yi's wife. If she dies, Gong Yi will not let the mastermind behind the incident go. Zhong Zimo just glanced at Mi Guiyuan. "If no one tells anyone, how would anyone know that we gave them the gun? Besides, even if we gave Qin Xiaolan the gun, we don't know who she's going to kill." Mi Guiyuan on the opposite side pursed his lips and frowned. Zhong Zimo is much braver than him. He just wanted Huami to leave Gong Yi so that Gong Yi could have more fun. But Zhong Zimo wanted Huami to die. Zhong Zimo did not say it explicitly, but everything he did was aimed at killing Huami, a pregnant woman. What if? Mi Guiyuan gritted his teeth. What if Qin Xiaolan fails? Zhong Zimo laughed immediately. How could she fail? The person she wants to kill is not a god. She is just a pregnant woman, and she is pregnant with twins, with a 6-month pregnant belly. The possibility that such a weak woman could survive Qin Xiaolan's gun is extremely slim. Mi Guiyuan thought about it and agreed, although he had no intention of killing Huami. But when Huami really died, it gave many women opportunities. An opportunity to get close to Gong Yi. So Mi Guiyuan did not try to persuade Zhong Zimo. At night, someone brought a gun to the gate of City D, handed it to Qin Xiaolan, and left with a large sum of money. During the entire process, neither Zhong Zimo nor Mi Guiyuan showed up. The next morning, Qin Xiaolan, after having enough food and drink, entered City D. In City D, just as the rumors say, there is everything. There are ordinary survivors who come to kill zombies, and there are also people who come in to set up stalls while killing zombies. There are also several vending machines filled with a wide variety of goods. There is a small stall right next to the teleportation point. The stall was covered with red cloth with the words Crystal Core Exchange Point written on it. There were already many people queuing in front of the stall, holding crystal cores in their hands. Use crystal cores to exchange for money, and then use the money to spend at vending machines. Inside D-City and outside D-City are like two different worlds. Qin Xiaolan walked forward. There are no zombies to kill at the entrance of City D. She saw someone in front of her, scanned the QR code with her mobile phone, and bought a set of protective clothing from the vending machine. He took off his old protective suit that was covered in zombie blood, threw it on the ground, and put on new protective suit. After a while, several sweeping robots came over, tore off the protective suits stained with zombies' blood on the ground, and ate them into their stomachs. A very powerful sweeping robot. Qin Xiaolan was in a trance moving forward. She wants to find Huami. Soon, Qin Xiaolan, who was dressed in shabby clothes and alone, was noticed by the men in the city. Someone came forward curiously and approached Qin Xiaolan. "Hey, are you here to kill zombies too?" Qin Xiaolan smiled at the man with a broken expression, stretched out her hand, and hooked the man's neck. "No, I'm here to look for someone." As soon as people see her behavior, they know what this woman does for a living. A few men have evil glimmers in their eyes. Most of the men shook their heads and turned away. There are more and more survivors in City D. When talking about zombies, many people still look terrified. But most people who can come to City D are quite brave. Being bold means more money and more supplies. Women who come to D-City to sell their bodies are also rare. Qin Xiaolan was doing very well here. Deep in the city of D, Huami, holding a 2-meter-long knife, cut off the head of the zombie opposite, and turned back to shout, "Kai Xia, help me dig out the crystal core." She is not feeling well. Shirt Saixia ran over helplessly, with a group of zombies following behind him. He turned back to chop off a zombie's head, then skillfully stomped on the zombie's head to pieces. She picked out a zombie crystal core the size of a pomegranate seed from a pile of shredded brains and threw it to Huami. "Take it." Huami's movements were clumsy, but she accurately caught the crystal core handed to her by Shirt Saixia. When she turned around, she saw Zhou Cheng. Zhou Cheng had a simple smile on his face. Seeing Shirt Saixia coming over, he scratched his head and asked, "Xia Xia, have you agreed to marry me today?" He really would come to ask Shirt Saixia this question every day, no matter how long he had been killing zombies or how long he had been without sleep. "I would definitely come and hang around Shirt Saixia every day." Shirt Saixia rolled his eyes at Zhou Cheng and said nothing. At this moment, Shirt Saixia took out his mobile phone and looked at the screen. Most of the dozens of missed calls above were from Zhong Zimo. Zhou Cheng beside him took a glance and said honestly, "Secretary Zhong is very persistent. He calls you dozens of times every day. Unlike me, I never call you but come to you in person." Huami, who was not far away, stroked her belly, leaned against the garbage truck on the side of the road, and glanced at Zhou Cheng. Then Zhou Cheng said honestly, "Secretary Zhong is educated and smart. He is outside of City D and can chase Xia Xia while avoiding danger. I am different. I am so stupid that I will just go wherever there is danger." Huami looked at Zhou Cheng carefully again and opened her mouth to speak. Zhou Cheng raised his eyes and glanced at Huami, signaling her to leave quickly. With him by Xia Xia's side, Huami didn't need to speak. Okay, Zhou Cheng is really an honest and simple person. Huami touched the tip of her nose, then turned around and left tactfully. She was fat and clumsy. Just as she walked to the next street, several men came up to her from all directions. Seeing this situation, Huami snorted coldly, held her waist, and stood still. Huami was very familiar with this kind of thing. Maybe she was too calm. The man who first walked up to her had a malicious look on his face. Pregnant woman. We recently slept with a woman. She doesn't want money or supplies. She just wants us to help her get revenge. What deep hatred do I have with her? Why is she seeking revenge on me in this way? How many men has she slept with for free? Look at the men coming from all directions. There are quite a few of them. Huami counted secretly. 1, 2, 3, 4, 27. So many men are sleeping with me for free. The leading man glanced at Huami's belly with regret. He did not answer Huami, but said, "What a pity. I don't care about your deep hatred. I see that your belly is not small. Sooner or later, you will die in the mouth of zombies. It is better for us to kill you and fulfill our promise." It is said that Huami has a lot of money on him. This is what Qin Xiaolan said. Before sleeping with each man, she would tell him her conditions. She would not take a penny or a bite of food. But these men want to help her take Huami's life. As long as they kill Huami, the money on her body will belong to these men. If they agreed to Qin Xiaolan, they could sleep with her. It doesn't really matter whether I sleep with this old, ugly woman or not. But they got some very tempting news. Huami, the pregnant woman, has a lot of money, enough to buy the entire Xiangqing base. This is very tempting for most men. There are so many zombies in City D that a pregnant woman simply cannot survive. Rather than letting Huami die in the zombies' mouths, it is better to die in their hands. Huami shrugged and watched the man opposite her pull out a knife and point the tip of the knife at her stomach. She shook her head. "I can provoke you, but you can't point the knife at my cub. Mothers are born to protect their children." The second directly cut off the man's neck. Because the knife was too long, it was almost 2 meters long. So the man's hot blood did not rush onto Huami's body. She took 2 steps back, and the man behind her raised his weapon and slashed at Huami's back. Huami seemed to have eyes on her back, with a big belly, and she stabbed with her backhand. She raised her eyes, with cold and bloodthirsty eyes projected from her goggles, looking at the men on the opposite side who were eager to try. "Do you know who you bought the weapons from?" Before she could finish her words, the men in front, behind, and around her all rushed towards her. They are undoubtedly the bravest among the survivors. Since he has the courage, he can stand out from the team of survivors and become the first one among them to face the zombies. He also has the guts to make this ill-gotten wealth. Huami didn't call anyone at all, even though Gong Yi gave her a whistle specifically for garrisoning. As long as she blows the whistle, all the garrisons nearby will come in time. But Huami didn't have time to whistle. She danced with the long sword in her hand, making a whistling sound, and with her big belly, her movements were clumsy and bloated. But no one could touch her. No one even knew how she, with such a bloated figure, could move so smoothly as to cut in half all the men who besieged her on the long street. This may be a mystery that will never be solved. Dozens of sweeping robots came from all directions, and a garbage truck slowly drove down the street. After a while, the bodies on the ground were cleared away. Even the white snow stained with bright red blood was shoveled clean. The whole long street seemed as if nothing had happened. Huami, holding the bloody long knife, continued to wander towards the next long street. She met Qin Xiaolan here. The hair under Qin Xiaolan's had become as dry as a handful of dead grass. Her dead fish eyes stared at Huami. "How did you escape?" Standing in the snow, Qin Xiaolan was shaky and screamed at Huami with a broken face. "I ask you, how did you escape?"
Huh?
Why did you run away?" Qin Xiaolan has gone completely crazy. She stood in the snow, looking at Huami. "It's all because of you. If it weren't for you, I wouldn't have suffered so much. It's all because of you." She finally stopped pretending. Not long ago, she was kneeling on the ground, looking pitiful in front of everyone. I hope Huami can let her go. But now, The look in her eyes when she looked at Huami was full of hatred. Deep hatred. What does it have to do with me? Isn't it your own fault that you are in this situation? Huami and Qin Xiaolan had no interactions before. It was Qin Xiaolan herself who was too naive and trusted Fong Xian and ended up falling into Monkey Brother's hands. Now that monkey is dead, you could have moved on from the past and lived a good life, but you still chose to sell yourself out. If you don't work hard yourself and always look for others' faults, are you blaming others for all the mistakes in your life? You can live a more relaxed life. Huami looked at Qin Xiaolan warily. The hatred on Qin Xiaolan's face turned into confusion. After a while, Qin Xiaolan murmured, "But you are my brother's girlfriend. You should have found me and protected me from the very beginning. You should also treat my mother well and provide for her in her old age."
So?
Just because I was blind once, I have to work like a captive for your family for the rest of my life? Huami didn't know what kind of thought this was. Qin Xiaolan couldn't control her emotions and shouted loudly, "Why not? Why can't you be a captive to our family for the rest of your life? Other wives work hard for their husband's family and take care of their husband's family. Huami, you also said that he is your husband. What is the relationship between me and your brother? You should ask Fong Xian for this matter." "Oh, I forgot. Fong Xian is dead." Before she finished her words, Qin Xiaolan, who had a crazy expression on her face, suddenly pulled out a gun and shot Huami. She shouted loudly, "Fong Xian! Fong Xian! Fong Xian is also your sister. It is because of your sister that I have been harmed like this." The bullet was fired, but did not hit Huami. Huami just stood there without moving. When Qin Xiaolan was about to draw her gun, she could have actually moved away. But Huami didn't move and the bullet didn't hit her. The bullet stopped in front of Huami, as if there was a transparent wall between them. It was stuck in the wall 1 meter away from Huami, unable to move. Qin Xiaolan was unwilling to give up, so she pointed the gun at Huami again and fired several shots.
Why?
"Why can't I kill you?"
Why?
She couldn't believe it. She looked at the bullet floating in front of Huami and screamed frantically, "What is this? Why is the bullet floating in front of you? Why are you not dead?" "Because." Huami held the long sword and looked up at the sky. "I am always within the range of someone's mental power." Although Huami didn't mention it, she was in City D and was under the coverage of Gong Yi's mental power at all times. Now Gong Yi's mental power can cover an area of more than 600 meters in radius. Now that Huami's belly is so big, she wants to move around, kill zombies, and do whatever she wants, and Gong Yi won't care about her. Because Gong Yi knew that Huami was not in danger. When the real bullet comes, Gong Yi will not let Huami be in any danger. Although Huami may not be able to avoid these bullets. The next moment, Huami swung the long knife in her hand and cut off Qin Xiaolan's arm holding the gun.
Ah!
A scream was heard, and a black pistol and a piece of arm fell into the snow. Huami took a step forward, and the pistol and arm disappeared from the spot. Before Qin Xiaolan could stand firm, Huami placed the long knife in her hand across Qin Xiaolan's neck. "You have messed up your life simply because of your own incompetence and your unwillingness to endure hardship and your desire for enjoyment." Huami exerted a little force, and the sharp blade of the long knife cut the flesh on Qin Xiaolan's neck. She said expressionlessly, "Since you feel that living is a pain, I will send you on your way and reunite with your brother and mother." As she spoke, Huami's hand pushed the handle of the long sword. With a little force, Qin Xiaolan's head was cut off. This action seemed slow, but in fact, it did not even leave Qin Xiaolan time to say her last words. The sweeping robot came up quickly and sent Qin Xiaolan's body to the high-type garbage recycling station. The sweeping robot has been working very hard recently and has gained a lot of level 19 factory energy. Huami's high-type garbage recycling station has reached level 6, remaining draws X36. The streets and alleys of City D are filled with sweeping robots and driverless garbage trucks. The zombie corpses are cleared 24 hours a day to prevent the city from having piles of zombie corpses. Looking at the long white street, Huami seemed very satisfied. She turned around and went to another street to search for zombies. It was as if she had never experienced a bloody battle, and as if Qin Xiaolan had never appeared in front of her. Even from the beginning to the end, Gong Yi did not appear. At this time, Zhong Zimo, who was standing outside the city gate, was looking at the city D in the wind and snow, like a stone waiting for her husband to leave. Behind him, Mi Guiyuan said, "I received news that Qin Xiaolan went to look for Huami, but she disappeared. Huami is still alive. More and more people are entering City D. If you pay to find out, you will find out what Mi Guiyuan and Zhong Zimo have done. As long as the money is in place, the people inside will pass some information out." Mi Guiyuan lowered his voice and said, "It seems that Qin Xiaolan has failed. Zhong Zimo had very little money left, and he used half of it to buy a gun. It costs a lot of money to get information. If they don't find a way to leave, they will expose themselves sooner or later." Seeing that Zhong Zimo didn't say anything, Mi Guiyuan said in a deep voice, "I have news for you. If you decide to come with me, I'll take you to see the boss. He is currently in City E, and he has a group of supernatural beings under his command." Hearing this, Zhong Zimo suddenly turned around, his eyes shining. "Your boss? Zhang Jifeng? Isn't he dead?" Mi Guiyuan, "No, Zhang Jifeng is just my boss." Seeing that Zhong Zimo had tried everything and had wasted so much time at the gate of City D, he couldn't even touch the edge of the garrison. Mi Guiyuan had to find a way out again. As a result, he contacted the boss. Zhong Zimo, however, just listened with shining eyes to the superpower mentioned by Mi Guiyuan. On a